Morning and welcome to Breakfast Extra, your Sunday rendezvous with perspective. Now today, we are taking the scenic route through dusty timelines and digital breadcrumbs to a destination even you did not know that you needed to arrive at. But don't worry, you just wait. Hang in there because our journey starts not on the corridors of diplomacy, but on Instagram. So on Thursday morning, while scrolling through social media, I stumbled on a very curious little reel. In it, a white lady asked, "What do you call this bag?" She was referring to a familiar red, blue, and white woven plastic bag many of us have grown up seeing, stuffed with travel effects of the lower and middle class during August meetings, travels, and also yam festivals. Let's take a listen to what she said.
Someone let me know what they call these bags. I grew up thinking these were Christmas bags. Like, because that was the bag that the Christmas decorations and lights were always stored in. Please tell me someone else's family did this.
This lady called them Christmas bags because in her culture, these were where the decorations go after the holidays. Very neat, if you ask me. But then came a comment that moved me more than it should have. From a Ugandan user, Felicia Tama, who replied, "In Uganda, we call them Lagos bags, not Osofia, or rather Osofia." And there it was, a cultural diffusion in motion. A Nollywood character, Osofia, had become something synonymous with a utility bag halfway across the continent in East Africa. What had happened here was a cultural transaction. Uganda got entertainment, Nollywood got audience, and Nigeria got influence. Global branding without even trying. I mean, you gotta love it. Now, hold on to that influence for a second. I'll be back. Remember, back home here in Nigeria, we don't call them Lagos bags or Sofia. We call it what history and perhaps trauma named it. Ghana must go. And that, my dear friends, is where today's story kicks off. Act 1. When nationals packed their bags. It was 1983. Nigeria was riding high on oil money. The naira was still strong. The ports were very busy. The air was full of promise and people. Now, among those people were over 2 million Ghanaians, many of them working low-wage jobs, doing the kind of informal labor that, keeps economies growing, kind of like Mexicans in American farms harvesting apples. But, that story for another day. Now, things then took a turn. Following a high-profile robbery case involving the vice president then, Alex Ekweme, where suspects apprehended turned out to be Ghanaian nationals, public sentiments began to soar. President Shehu Shagari at the time, facing increasing economic strain and political pressure, he issued an executive order that sent shockwaves across the sub-region. All illegal aliens must leave Nigeria. And they were given just 2 weeks to do so. The operation began swiftly. Police, as you know, Nigerian police, swept into raids, road checkpoints, workplace sweeps. Ghanaian nationals, many of whom had even lived here in Nigeria for years, some of them even born here, were rounded up and told to pack their things. 2 weeks. But how do you pack your life in 2 weeks? What kind of luggage does this kind of rapid displacement demand? Enter the bag. Cheap, available, spacious, durable, and suddenly it was everywhere. What was once a no-name plastic woven container became the reluctant star of an exodus. By February 1983, the borders of Nigeria had become scenes of chaos. Overland routes to Ghana were choked with vehicles. The Badagry-Seme border was at a standstill for days. But even that was not half of the problem, because back in Accra, Jerry Rawlings, then Ghana's military ruler, had just survived a coup. His government, already tense, decided to shut down the Ghanaian border, fearing the return of people flooding into the country will destabilize an already fragile regime. And so thousands of Ghanaians were stranded, stateless, nationless, with their lives packed in these red, white, and blue plastic bags, waiting at the borders. So you see, the term Ghana must go was born not from humor, but from history, from haste, from heartbreak. A Nigerian phase that, captured a political decision, a national mood, and an unforgettable migration all inside of one bag. Act 2, history on repeat. Fast forward to July 2025, and suddenly the hashtag has flipped around. Nigeria must go this time. Protests erupt in Ghana, that's in Accra and Kumasi. Nigerian traders are accused of crowding out local businesses, bending retail laws, and most devastatingly, fueling crime. Calls for deportation rise. Shops are shut. Misinformation spreads like wildfire. You should expect that. But here's the twist. History seems to be replaying itself, only this time in reverse. In the 1980s, Ghana needed Nigeria more than Nigeria realized. Today, we see Nigerians needing stable climate that Ghana provides to thrive in their businesses in Ghana. But wait a second. To be fair, and let's be fair, Ghana still benefits from Nigerian presence presently in ways that are less visible but deeply impactful. Over 65,000 Nigerian students are enrolled in Ghanaian universities, contributing nearly $1 billion annually in tuition, rent, and daily expenses. Informal trade between both countries stands at around $683 million a year, well above, formal trade. Nigerian SMEs and creative entrepreneurs have built entire industries in Accra's nightlife, their music, their fashion, and their food scenes. So we don't just cross borders as Nigerians, we bring commerce, we bring culture and competition. Nigerians don't just bring visa stamps wherever they go, we bring the vibe and we carry the money to fuel it as well, like it or not. I mean, it's no surprise that in Dubai, they found themselves in very similar shoes. After restricting Nigerians during 2021, they faced a sharp drop in traffic, trade, and tourism. And within a year, the UAE had to quietly lift the ban. Because say what you will, Nigerians bring value. Even if our passport tries to say otherwise, we bring the walk. Now, Act 3, the state of things. Thankfully, currently, tensions seem to be cooling. Just last week, Ambassador Bianca Ojukwu met with former Ghanaian President John Mahama to begin easing diplomatic tension. Both sides now agree that expulsion is not a policy, it's a mistake. We saw that in 1983. And mistakes are costly, especially when both economies are tethered in quiet but very critical ways. But as we reflect on the past and navigate the present, let us speak to Nigerians everywhere, especially those outside our borders. Please, you guys, respect yourself. Please. Because no matter how familiar the language or cuisine, you are still a guest, and you can be easily distinguished out of a crowd by your L, P, and H factors. And now more than ever, Nigeria needs more than that. We need that good PR factor, good public relations, because we have none. Our global image is already frayed. From South Africa to Ghana, our footprint is something met with suspicion, even sometimes hostility. Not always because we've done wrong, but often because we fail to manage perception. The loud few become the ones that represent the silent many. So we must tread carefully, not fearfully, but wisely, knowing that reputation travels faster than visas. When we step onto foreign soil, we carry the weight of 200 million behind us. Let's not be mistaken for a nuisance where we could actually be an asset. And to our Ghanaian brothers and sisters, see, the West African dream, ECOWAS, trade corridor, student exchange, it can't thrive in a climate of suspicion. Remember that. So let me just end it here this way. Ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria and Ghana, the only thing Nigerians and Ghanaians should be fighting about still in 2025 should be jollof rice. And in that culinary battlefield, we as Nigerians are confident, we are bold, we are unapologetic, because even if history repeats itself in reverse, our Nigerian jollof will always be better than Ghanaian jollof. Good morning and welcome to Breakfast Extra. Whew, that was a tough one. Judith, please take over, say something smart, please, I beg. Welcome, by the way, good to have you here on the show.
Well, you haven't been saying something smart?
Well, you always have something smart to say, don't you?
Oh gosh, come on now. I will say this: that well done in chronicling the history between Ghana and Nigeria.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important that we always continually remind our audiences of our history and why it's important that we do not erase history. But more importantly is the fact that at this time, more than ever, there should be Pan-Africanism as opposed to division and separation and high ethnical tensions.
Hold that thought. I will join you and we'll continue this. I have so much to say. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Breakfast Extra. Let's get started.
And a very good morning to you, Nigerians and Ghanaians as well, and everyone across Africa. Welcome to Breakfast Extra. And as always, we've got quite the lineup for you. So we begin this morning with a brewing scandal in the Federal Fire Service, where allegations of illegal recruitment and bypassing of due process have sparked concern about safety and internal accountability. Next, we take a lighter but no less frustrating turn with a deep dive into the world of failed online orders. It's a viral reality of what I ordered versus what I got, and why consumer trust in e-commerce is wearing thin. And then we head on to our extra special for today, and we will be serving you jollof, a mixture of both Ghanaian and Nigerian, as we unpack the rising tension between the two nations. From migration to misinformation, we explore what's fueling the friction and what it says about regional identity and digital narratives. From there, we head back to the south of Nigeria, and that's Delta State, where grassroots politics is in turmoil. 3 councillors have been suspended in Ughelli North local government area over alleged misconduct, and it is staring wider questions about loyalty, power, and political games at the local level. And of course, we turn our focus onto the continent Africa, on Focus Africa, where we turn our eyes to global trade. Now, the U.S. has slapped South Africa with a 30% tariff hike, triggering major concern about exporters and rising questions about shifting global alliances. But as always, we are going to get started on the Sunday with our dailies for today. We bring you the major front pages of the newspapers of the dailies across Nigeria. But Mazzino, well done on the by the way.
It took an entire week, but who's complaining? Well, I'll tell you something about that instance, the great exodus that Africa doesn't talk about.
Right.
It was such a moment in our history as Africans that we failed to tell how big a deal it was. Do you know what was the biggest traffic jam in African history? It was the Ghana-Moscow instance.
Right.
We had vehicles that were stranded on the roads from the Togo-Benin border, stretching all the way to Benin, across Benin and into Badagry. It was so big a deal because there were no health facilities, no convenience for people to take their breaks or ease themselves or even take baths. And for days, Ghanaian border was closed. So people had to do their business on the road.
Right.
Imagine being stuck on a 200-kilometer stretch traffic jam.
Yeah.
That was what happened. Nobody talks about it.
And again, that's why we always say that I think that there are 2 nations in the world that have sort of gotten it right in terms of their history, but they're now rewriting it as well. In this year, America First propaganda, and that's America. But again, even still, it can be shrouded in mystery. But Nigeria has not done enough, or even Africa in its entirety hasn't done enough in documenting history, in teaching the history in school, and shying away from what exactly is truth. And I will say this to parents out there and also our viewers that are watching, that it's important. It behooves you a little of, it's on you to go out there and go educate yourself. More than ever, you need to read up on, and educate yourself. And there's not so much we can do as the media, but you do have to. And what was interesting about that time, I remember,
you couldn't have remembered, you weren't born yet.
No. When I say I remember, I'm blessed to, read. I'm also blessed to, work with Ghanaian authors, and I'm also blessed to have, read literature. And when we read on African literature, there was a part that it was on African literature, which was in, I think, 200 level, 300 level. There was also a time that it was on Nigerian literature. That was when I got to find out what exactly was the Civil War. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's when I got to find out about Ghana Must Go. And that's when I got to find out about, the apartheid era in South Africa. And that's when I got to find out about the struggles of, South Africa, in the Southern Africa in general, in terms of white landowners and the rest. And I think it's important that, as much as we're busy with our everyday lives, we need to pick up a book. But at that fore is where all of those issues was why plenty agencies were created. One of them was the African Union, right? Which is the AU. Another was the geopolitical unions that we see, and that we have the South African one, we have the West African one, which is ECOWAS, we have the East African one, we have all of those. And what they're supposed to do is to sort of create a synergy, and create a collective identity with, those regions. But I don't know what's happening with those agencies.
No, they're
doing their best, but I think they can do more.
I'll tell you something. I think we are, as nations, a bit too occupied or preoccupied with what's happening inside of each of these nations. Nigeria is preoccupied, and everybody. But then, individually and as little sectors of society, I think that we are not doing the best ourselves as Nigerians when it comes to our PR. And I'll explain. If you can influence cultures as way away as Uganda, where they call these bags Sofia, imagine the kind of influence that we have. Now imagine the kind of influence that vehicle of entertainment and Nollywood carries. What do we portray Nigeria as in our entertainment sector? Thieves, scandals, 419, prostitution. We need to do better. We need to tell the story. There's a series that's going on right now where everybody is captivated by the storyline. And you know the one I'm talking about. I'm not going to say it. But it's very interesting, and I've seen it. I think the actors and actresses are fantastic. The scenery and everything well put together. But the storyline is not one of the Nigerian. It's not generically Nigerian. It's very foreign and mafia-like. And that's what we're telling people that we are like. So that's the assignment Nollywood has to do to portray us in better light.
You remember in every movie...
We're forgetting the paper. We're forgetting the papers at the end of today.
So, if you have to believe a television, a fictional character, that's what the climb is in Nigeria.
We don't believe it, but the people
no, that's what I'm saying. If you are outside and you're watching a movie, that if you watch any Korean drama, any Korean movie or so, even back in the day, they would tell you none of these scenes, everything here is fictional, right? And we have to
How many people read that fine print?
But there's no caveat.
Do you read it, educated woman?
I not say. Hang on, relax. What I'm saying is that a movie is fictional. Will I say that the way Interstellar is the way the universe is?
Could be, yes. Yes.
Come on now. No, what I'm saying is.
But listen, no, I understand you.
No.
Do this.
So,
I understand you. But ideas. You're putting an idea in a person's head, whether you like it or not, whether it's true or false, it will generate.
If you say that, then let AU, the Organization of African Union, which became AU, ECOWAS, the other unions that are for those geopolitical zones or regions to invest in the arts, all right, and push that propaganda. It is not me who is a capitalist that has the job
and a consumer
that has, you know what I mean? Because that's what they're saddled with. That's their responsibility.
Bring it to Nigeria. What must Nigeria do? We have so much allocated to entertainment. Are we just giving it to these guys and say, just give us art? Or are we specifically saying...
Remember Maga no Pay?
Yeah, I remember that one.
It was sponsored. There were many things that was done back in the day. Go Circle Condom. There was cultism. I can name all of those things.
What did you say? Back in the day.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Bring it back. If you want to re-educate the minds of Nigerians, if you want to rewire the minds of Nigerians, we don't need re-education.
We're living it.
If you want to resound that Pan-Africanism in our heads, then I think that it is left to the government and the aid. That's their job.
Judith,
that's really. I cannot come and tell a capitalist to tell you. They thrive on disunity and diversity.
The Punch newspaper this morning has a headline.
We
should do the papers.
Continue now.
Should we do the papers? Okay, we continue. Because I can't hear. I'm very sorry.
Break. There we go.
Yes.
So we should go on a break. There we go. It's time for us to go on that short break. When we return, we bring you our big reports this morning. Alleged illegal recruitment in the Federal Fire Service. After the break, stay with us.
Good morning again and welcome. Our very first big report this morning. There's unrest brewing within the Federal Fire Service as reports emerge of alleged illegal recruitment into critical mid-level positions. Concerned officers have raised red flags, claiming that due process has been ignored in favor of hand-picked outsiders. According to an open letter dated July 28, addressed to both the Minister of Interior and the Civil Defense, Immigration and Prisons Service Board, the Comptroller General is accusing, or rather being accused, of bypassing established protocols. The letter alleged that the ongoing recruitment into grade levels 10 to 14 violates the 2013 guidelines, which prohibit lateral transfers into paramilitary agencies like the fire service. The officers warn that bringing in inexperienced personnel could put public safety at risk.
In short, this is a matter of protocol, legality, and safety, and it's one that's shaking the trust within one of the country's key emergency services. And so to walk us through this explosive report is Joshua Marai, our correspondent here at News Central, who has been following the story closely. Joshua, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you for doing this with us this morning. Joshua joins us live from the capital, Abuja. Joshua, let's start from the beginning. How did you come across this story, and what tipped you off to the unrest within the fire service?
Well, thank you for having me this morning, Judith and Martindo. So this particular letter was circulated across several social media platforms. And what caught my attention was the fact that few moments from that time, the Controller General of the Federal Fire Service, that's the person of Abdul Ganiyu Jaji, was supposed to retire. And that particular letter, several allegations were made stating that that's Abdul Ganiyu Fatai was planning to plant stooges into several mid-level positions in the Federal Fire Service so as to have sway in their say. And one thing that was noted there was the fact that they were complaining that these positions that they are trying to recruit persons from external sources, they have qualified persons in-house to fill those positions. And doing that will compromise the integrity of the Federal Fire Service, which is known for its own tactical approach to recruiting personnel into the service. And what we know is that before one could be recruited into the Federal Fire Service, that person has to go through a series of trainings, screenings as well, to make that person fit for the Federal Fire Service. So when that letter came, there were more to it, because we started making calls and we discovered that there seems to be an iota of truth in that particular letter. And one thing about civil service and the likes is that whenever there are issues like this, people don't like coming out singularly to state the fact. So they are always hiding under this anonymity to protect their own image.
Now, Joshua, that's very interesting. You talked about this tactical approach to recruiting, and I'm wondering how exactly the format is. What do they have to go through to be able to get to this level and be employed? Because it's a matter of risk at the end of the day. The fire service is supposed to be very well regulated. So what are they jumping? What protocols are they jumping?
If anybody is employed into the Federal Fire Service, that person has to apply, and they do that through their portal. And when the application is made, there are several levels to which the personnel can be recruited into the Federal Fire Service. And that is from the lower cadre, that is the constabulary, then maybe the inspector cadre, and then the cadet cadre. So what we are talking currently about is from the cadet cadre upwards to managerial position. So whenever this notice being made, people apply, and when they apply, they write written exams. And when those exams are passed, fortunately for those persons, they pass these exams, then they go forward to screening. From screening, they go for in-house training for a period of nothing less than 6 months. So recruiting someone into the Federal Fire Service as a personnel without that particular experience actually puts the Federal Fire Service names at risk, because in terms of technicalities, those people might fall short. In terms of meeting the know-how, they might also fall short. So this is how personnel are recruited into the fire service.
Now, Joshua, just to clarify, the person who tipped you off on this story, what's his fate?
Can you take that again?
I was asking about your tip, your source. What's the latest with him or them?
That letter was written under the guise of concerned personnel of the Federal Fire Service. So nobody was named as to be the leader or perhaps the spokesperson for those disgruntled people within the Federal Fire Service. They were under the umbrella of concerned personnel. So one could not pinpoint that this particular person is writing this letter. But what we know is that something like that happened. But it will interest you to know that fortunately, that particular day that letter emanated, where I reported on that particular issue, the president took some decisive action, and a new Controller General of the Federal Fire Service was appointed that particular day. So this is saying that events are overtaking the entire team, and we are seeing that Abdul Ganiu Jaji is no longer the Controller General of the Federal Fire Service. A new person has been appointed by President Bola Tinubu as the Controller of the Federal Fire Service.
So what happens next? If you're saying there's a new Comptroller General in charge of the office, were you able to reach out to any of the authorities? Does this mean this is a dead end for your investigations?
The investigation still continues. We are still pursuing this because, of course, we expect that an in-house audit will be made to see if that is truly happening, and those who are responsible for this particular action. We are still following up on the issue. We are not letting it die, and we hope that we'll be giving answers as I went to you.
Joshua, I am very concerned for Abdul Ganiu Jaji. If you say that he has been removed as a Comptroller General, why was he removed? Was he removed because he was responsible for this letter getting out or these issues coming out? And it seems a bit punitive, like as if he was responsible, that he was being punished for that and somebody else appointed. This is just a theory. What do you think?
Well, we know that Abdul Ganiu Jaji was supposed to retire anytime from that moment. So that when it came out, we saw this as a red flag because this is a normal practice from some corrupt individuals. We are not saying Abdul Ganiu is corrupt, but we are saying that there have been allegations of this sort, saying that he wants to leave service and he's planning to bring in people to fill those positions. And we are still pursuing to uncover the truth if something of such nature is truly happening. And if it is truly happening, then I think the law should take its course.
So it seems there are two ways to look at it. That if he's responsible for the situation that we find ourselves here now, when people are being employed arbitrarily, that something has been done by the authorities and he has been replaced. However, if he was responsible for actually whistleblowing, then something of the opposite kind might have happened. And that's what I'm trying to ascertain here, that which of these two possibilities might be the real possibility. I don't know if you get me.
I truly get you, but on that letter, hands were pointed at Abdul Ganiu Jaji as the person responsible for that alleged action. But it is unclear if he actually did that. But we know that something of such nature was being alleged by some concerned personnel of the Federal Fire Service. They were pointing hands at him. Why? Because according to the letter, they said he was going to retire at any moment from that time, and that this was another attempt to bring in people to fill those positions as he leaves. But that particular day, the presidency came out with a notice saying that a person has been appointed. We don't know for sure if that action was as a result of the appointment, or perhaps there seems to be a restructuring going on in-house within the Federal Fire Service. We don't know for sure. But what we know is that hands were pointing at Abdul Ganiu Jaji as the alleged person in this case.
Or perhaps maybe they were just putting in place the structure for when he actually does retire, since that is close.
As we're talking about, just the fire service, you have visited the offices. I'm wondering, what was the mood like, the atmosphere like there, especially now with the new appointee or a new Comptroller General?
Of course, the appointment of the new Comptroller General was celebrated amongst personnel and officers alike. Well, one thing about this office is they don't come out openly to rejoice when something of this sort happens, of this nature happens. They don't come out to rejoice openly. That is just the nature of civil service. They don't come out to rejoice on these actions openly. But we know that some parties seems to be happy. Of course, there will be disgruntled parties at the appointment, concerning the appointment of the new Comptroller General. But we know that. But what we know is that the Federal Fire Service has welcomed the appointment of the new Comptroller General with open hands and open hearts.
Well, Joshua, and what's the next step for you on this report, on this case? I fear that you saying it, they might be watching, but don't give away everything.
Well, the next step is to pursue this, to seek the truth, daring, to see what is the crux of the issue. If such person was responsible for this action, we should know. But one thing that is common within civil service and the likes is that they withhold information. They don't like giving information. Why?
Very
Because
true.
maybe there's this fear of the powers that be or whatever. But what we know is that we are going to pursue this to the latter to see the root of this issue and to address it accordingly.
Well, I want to say thank you very much, Joshua Marai, for bringing us this detail here, and we hope that it continues to unfold and that we don't see these kinds of racketeering happening inside of our agencies. Thank you very much, Joshua. Let's let you have your Sunday morning. Thank you for always being at hand to join us on Breakfast Extra.
It's a pleasure.
Very interesting there. We'll continue to bring you details and updates on that story here on News Central. Do stay tuned because we've got more big reports coming your way and a very exciting one. Something about, what was it again, Judith? What I ordered versus what I got.
The men in Lagos, that's where they are.
Oh, we were not going to go there. But it's okay. We'll be back.
You welcome back. Now, we've all seen the memes, by the way. The dress that looks designer on the website but arrived looking like a costume for your traditional day out at secondary school. The sleek shoes that turned out to be plastic slippers. Well, you're not Cinderella, by the way. The blender that barely blends, what once felt like minor online inconveniences, have now ballooned into something much bigger. A growing number of Nigerians are finding themselves victims of misleading advertising, counterfeit goods, and also flat-out online scams. And as e-commerce continues to boom across Africa, so the complaints from frustrated customers whose expectations are repeatedly crushed by subpar deliveries.
It's the digital equivalent of buying a dream and receiving a disaster. It's left many wondering whether consumer protection laws are keeping up with the times. Now, here to break down this consumer crisis is News Central's Chamunda Beng, who's been speaking with victims and also regulators. She also put out a report on this, so we're going to be taking a look at that report now.
In a world where impulse buying is king, several of the victims of this crime were innocent online shoppers looking for clothing, apparel, or that last bit of home decor to tie the living room together, only to be met by the shocker of their lives when what they ordered looked nothing like what they got. Victim Christabel says her trust has been shattered beyond repair as her tailor delivered a dress that brought her to tears, while victim Karen says she was left bamboozled when what she thought was a luxury wig turned out to be a sponge with strands.
I gave you this material. The material was so expensive. And I told you what I wanted, and this was what you made for me. I cried from his shop to the house. Like, I have never cried like that. Even when, like, I was having serious heartbreak, I did not cry like that.
The main reason because my breast started and I began to comb the wig, and the wig was shredding. Like, just immediately, breast started by it was shredding. It was shredding so bad, and it was very, very strong. A wig for 560,000 was not supposed to be like that.
However, not every victim takes things lying down. Some have been known to fight back and succeed.
I started putting her on my Instagram story and asking her to refund us our money because we are giving her back her hair. She had acknowledged that she has received the hair. Throughout that evening and that night, people were dragging them on TikTok, posting her business everywhere, posting her face too. So the next day, I ever started passing and told me that she's going to send me the money, that she please take down the post. I said I'm not going to take down the post anymore. Because the first time we made an agreement, she went behind my back and wants to post bad things about me. So I think by 2 p.m. that afternoon, I got my money in full.
As ridiculous as it may seem, the rampant nature of these criminal activities being perpetuated by self-acclaimed entrepreneurs shows a glaring gap in the ethics and values of business.
A lot of Nigerians are shopping abroad, sending the scarce forest reserve, or better say the scarce effects that we have to other nations. If you're buying from every other place, you get good packaging, you get treated right, you have to monitor when your goods are coming in. you know. And so when this continues to happen, the true people or the people who want to make a difference, they get short of the market. People no longer trust. People take the business somewhere else where they are not participating.
As social media continues to amplify the what I ordered versus what I got trend, one thing is clear: behind every viral laugh is a serious call for transparency, accountability, and better consumer protection. From shimmering fantasies to fabric fiascos, few things sting quite like the heartbreak of unboxing an item you've waited weeks for, only to discover reality was having a laugh at your expense. In a world of polished ads and clearance sales, it's clear that integrity outlasts a quick sale. If today's misadventures taught us anything, it's this: never let a polished photo fool you. For News Central Lagos, from the heart of heartaches and polyester disappointments, I am Chamun Dabeng.
Interesting report there, and we do have Chamun Dabeng in the studio here with us. Chamun, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Welcome.
We'll keep you on pause. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll be entering into that conversation. Once again, following that report by News Central correspondent Chamun Dabeng, what I ordered versus what I got. Chamun Dabeng is in the studio here with us today. Ladies, I'm going to leave this to you two because before we came on, Judith actually said something. And since it's going to be like that, I'm going to let you guys talk about it.
What are you talking about?
She said that's what Lagos men are like. What I ordered versus what I got.
I was like, no.
That's what most men are like. It's not
But that's not the conversation.
But there was a joke now. But it was a tongue-in-cheek joke.
It's a good joke.
Yeah, thank you. I do my best. But I mean, one of the things that I found interesting about your report was, not just what I ordered versus what I got in terms of online orders, but also on services as well. Yep. And so one has to ask the question about whether the CPC, which is the Consumer Protection Commission, has factored that into place in terms of service providers under the umbrella, in terms of checking them in that.
Even if it's something that has been put in place, a lot of Nigerians are blindly unaware of that situation. And even when they do put certain things in place, getting it in order and getting things done is usually a hassle.
Right.
So for a lot of Nigerians, they rather just backtrack, live with the fact that, you know what, I've been fooled here, I've been bamboozled, and they will take whatever it is that they've been given and just drop it somewhere and bring it out whenever they want to remember the fact that, yes, I should not be bamboozled again. And but yes, we do have certain bodies that have been put in place to make sure that services and products that are being delivered to Nigerians are actually, quality services and quality products. We have SON, we have the consumer protection as well. But how much are we really seeing? Are they really doing enough awareness for Nigerians to know that, yes, we are actually here to protect you and get you what you need? I remember when I was trying to do the report, I reached out to somebody at Standards Organization of Nigeria, and the first thing she asked me was, are you a victim? Before I went on to explain that, no, I'm not a victim. I'm trying to, speak to you guys and find out what you guys are doing to make sure that this does not continue. Even though we weren't able to actually get the interview, but nonetheless, it was nice to see that the first thing she asked me was, are you a victim?
If you had pretended to be a victim, what do you think would have happened?
I'm guessing the discussion would have
been different.
Longer, would have been very different.
And that's the part that I want to find, that I think that, as you rightfully put, the part of awareness is still very much lagging. But there's also the part of seeing it through to the end in terms of if I lay my complaint at you,
it should be an easy process.
Should be an easy process. But that's the thing about all of Nigeria's civil services, right? That bureaucracy, that red taping, the lengthy process to get things done. Do you think that's also part of a deterrent where Nigerians will be like, oh, if I go there, it's not the same thing. What are the odds?
It's what I said at the beginning. Most Nigerians would rather just not go through the process. And it's why so many people have created loopholes. Use money to get a lot of things done in Nigeria these days. When you're trying to get your international passport, you're trying to get your driver's license,
They would rather just circumvent any other extra process and please just hand it, let me take the picture.
Every time I
let
go
me
to
be
the
on my
passport
way.
office, I put on my press tag.
Nah, that's a good
That's,
one.
but,
you know,
what do you want? What?
let it through. But you know, the thing is, you guys have just noted very interesting things here. 3, on the part about loopholes. The loopholes don't just exist when you're trying to get things done. It also exists when you're trying to get resolved from after being a victim.
Yeah.
Only just recently, some lady went up on social media and started calling out a hair designer for
hair
30
vendor.
days, which went awry at the end of the day, because that's another story we might tell at the end of this report, at the end of this conversation. But then I wanted to tell that you are correct. There was an instance where I actually found myself being left alone. These guys were giving poor services, and when I complained, every other person I expected to complain with me didn't. They were like, oh God, now Nigeria.
That one is
you don't know where you
you don't know where you did.
Have we been so abused that this is how we simply just take these things? Like, okay. The other thing I was going to ask you, Chamun, was, now do these agencies, the CPC, SON, do they have like soldiers, foot soldiers, who actually are involved in trying to take care of these victims that do come up to them? Or is it left to the police?
I don't really see the police involved in situations like this unless you go directly to them to report the case. And even at that, we've heard situations from victims, saying that they had to drop something, put a little something, slide it across the table to,
so isn't that in itself a problem?
It's
if
a
these
huge
bodies exist and they don't have their own machinery to actually go about and take care of these instances that are brought to their tables?
I believe that consumer protection does have its own machinery. I'm not that sure about standard SON, because I do remember a situation where certain supermarkets in Abuja were closed down because they were selling products at a very high markup. So they were shut down till they could get their pricing right and sell at better prices. So I am aware of those situations on that area, but as far as SON, not so much. Not so much that I've seen.
Do you think by now the CPC should have a chapter for Nigerian tailors?
No.
See, look, they need to have a chapter for Nigerian tailors, Nigerian mechanics, Nigerian electricians, Nigerian artisans in general. There needs to be a specific chapter. Honestly, I feel like there should be like 100,000 naira fine or like a jail term.
No. Have you seen the dresses they make on Lekki? There should be particular ones for those on the island and one for the mainland. If you're on Lekki, servicing those on Lekki via Ikoyi, there should be a particular chapter for you, because them persons over there are paying like over 500, half a mil on a dress. And you're telling me if my dress isn't ready? Nah, you're gonna sleep in jail.
It's not even just about it not being ready. It's the fact that it looks like the tailor down the street. That made it, as opposed to jail.
So let's talk about an instance that got social media's attention. A lady only recently came out to tell that she had been, she was a victim. She had paid for something and got something totally different. She didn't go the route which you are suggesting now, SON or CPC. She went on social media herself to try and get action. And she called out the the merchant. She called out the merchant for 30 days. I don't know what happened, but it seems to have flipped, because the next video we were seeing on social media was of the police arresting her, which brings back why I asked if the police are supposed to be absolutely involved in these processes that have these agencies like SON and CPC.
All right, so when it comes to Nigerian police, I will say this: there needs to be some overhaul of their, processes, because it doesn't make any sense for you to walk up to an officer and say, please go and arrest this person. Here's 50,000 naira. That should be completely legal. I believe that there should be prosecution held against such officers, because I followed her story from the beginning of, the calling out, when she came on social media, when she was running on the market streets of Lagos and calling out
Very
the particular hair vendor, and only for the same hair vendor to eventually be the one to eventually arrest her as well. So from the gist of it that I got was an issue of her not returning the wig as of when she was supposed to. Some people defended her, saying that because the hair vendor took so long to return the money, to return the money, then she has every right to take her time to return the wig whenever it is that she's ready and whenever it is that's convenient. But nonetheless, it has to be illegal for officers to do such things. because sometimes it's a very unjust arrest.
Right.
When you look deeper into the story and you're wondering what exactly did this person do?
Because you can buy power with money in Nigeria.
Exactly, and
money is
it's
power.
yes.
Right. As the e-commerce booms in Nigeria, and as impulsive buying, which I love the opening of your report, as impulse buying becomes to widen and everyone can get things at the click of the finger. Do you think that the CPC, the SON, and every other agencies are well equipped to handle that boom?
Oh no. Oh no, because it's such a large scale, and even if it was at a smaller scale as where we are now, it's quite huge. But even at a smaller scale, it's very difficult to regulate that Instagram, social media, TikTok space, keep up with all those transactions.
Because that's where the e-commerce is happening now. It's not happening on
It's
apps.
not websites.
It's not websites. It's actually social media.
Yes, it's social media that it's being sold on. So you have to talk about tracking these people down,
right,
to make sure that they are being held accountable for their own actions. So I believe that there are other players that could come in. I believe that there was a time where you could report to your bank if you were scammed,
right?
And they'll probably freeze the account and take a few steps. So I think that simplifying these processes and making it known to Nigerians that these things are available for you, and making sure that the individual is actually being punished. Because the issue is accountability. The issue is entrepreneurial integrity, which you don't see a lot of these days. Because you have, for example, hair vendors selling hair. They'll tell you, oh, this is luxury, this is lush, this is this, and then...
our favorite word, luxury.
Yes, we love the word luxury in Nigeria. And at the end of the day, they're selling you a sponge with strands, like I said. And it's a very big problem because people are spending hundreds of thousands of naira, even into the millions, to buy this. It's fraud. If you look at it, and fraud is punishable by law. So why are they not being punished?
Can consumers be guarded against the vendors? Because when it's website, you can read through the fine prints, but now that social media comes into play, it has sort of blurred the lines.
It's at
as
your
well.
risk. It's at your risk.
So you can't
the truth is, I see it as it's at your risk. If you're going to endeavor in these kinds of purchases, know that this is risky, and especially that these people ask you to pay first and get the service after. We can only deliver it after you've paid. Why?
No, you can't even pay on delivery.
Why? I have to see it first. And
so
those are some of the regulations that it's going to be very difficult. It is.
Then what would you advise consumers then?
Well, you have to do your due diligence.
Exactly.
You really do need to do your due diligence. Using myself as an example, before I buy anything off of Instagram, I usually go through the comments and I look for people that I know have actually purchased the dress or purchased the hair, and I ask them, please, what was the quality of what you purchased? And they'll give you the information, but you still have to be careful because sometimes it's their friend.
Exactly.
So you need to be careful.
That's exactly. Listen, Chairman, it was an interesting report. We loved it, and that's why we had to bring you on the show to discuss more robustly on it. But it also felt like as if it was from personal experience, and from speaking here, I can see that. So I have to ask the two of you because she's rather passionate herself about this. So, ladies, both your hairs, was it what you ordered?
Of course.
Oh no, there's one time that it was not what I ordered.
Well, this one particular was what you ordered.
But this one was what I ordered.
Let's leave it there.
But, I was the brain fart. I lost it. It came in my ear. I forgot what I wanted to say. Forgive me.
Well, I think we should end it here because we have the news coming up at the top of the hour. Chairman the Bank, thank you for joining us on a Sunday morning. We'll be right back. Do stay tuned. And you're welcome. It's time for the headlines here inside of Breakfast Extra. My name is Mazino Appeal. Now we begin by telling you that the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives have suspended its 7-day nationwide warning strike. The decision to call off the strike followed a virtual emergency meeting of the National Executive Council on Saturday, during which the association reviewed recent engagements with the federal government. The industrial action was initiated to press for the implementation of key demands, including upward review of shifts and uniform allowances, introduction of a separate salary structure for nurses, increase in core duty allowance, mass recruitment of nursing personnel, and the creation of a dedicated nursing department within the Federal Ministry of Health. And to politics. Some major political parties in Rivers State may not take part in the forthcoming local government elections scheduled for 30th August. It was gathered that the newly formed coalition, the African Democratic Congress, the Emeka Beke-led All Progressive Congress, and the All People's Party were not yet prepared for the elections. The State Publicity Secretary of the ADC, Egila Luckyman, said the party had not yet decided on participation. It was also learned that the Rivers APC was in dire straits following the internal crisis rocking the party and the ongoing legal tussle between the Emeka Beke's camp and the faction led by Tony Okocha. And the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, has called for calm over the suspension of the operations of Badegi FM, a radio station in Minna, Niger State. This is contained in a statement issued by the Minister's Special Assistant on Media, Rabiu Ibrahim, on Saturday in Abuja. Idris noted the concerns raised by various stakeholders in the media industry regarding the recent directive by the Niger State government suspending the operations of the FM station. According to reports, Governor Umaru Bago of Niger State had issued the directive during an expanded State All Progressives Congress caucus meeting in Minna on Friday, citing allegations of unethical broadcasting and incitement by the station. Security matters now. The commandant of the Nigerian Defense Academy, Major General Abdul Ibrahim, says he is optimistic that the ongoing Camp Highland exercise in Plateau State will better prepare military cadets for Nigeria's complex security environment. News Central's Chizoba Nyanwe here reports from Sherry Hills.
Here at the Sherry Hills Training Institute in Plateau State are over 400 cadets of the 72 regular course and short service course 48 of the Nigerian Army, part of a larger contingent of 800 cadets from the Army, Navy, and Air Force set to graduate from the Nigerian Defense Academy this September. These cadets have journeyed from the NDA headquarters in Kaduna State to undergo the final stage of their military preparation, the adventure phase of the Camp Highland exercise here in Plateau State.
The training here and even what we have given them in the academy improves their stamina, their endurance, their resilience, their ability to confront challenges and overcome them. And those are some of the things you saw here, the obstacle. You know, they have different scenarios here, both on land and in the water. And these are the kind of challenges that they will face when they are commissioned pretty soon. And I know with this training, they will come out tops.
We are now better prepared as cadets to tackle challenges once we are being commissioned as officers in the Nigerian Army.
We've undergone several activities like the water crossing, the obstacle crossing, the parachute jumping, and then the abseiling and rappelling.
The final exercise, which is the Camp Highland, is meant to wrap up everything we've learned and then our ability to be able to put it into practice.
Sooner than later, when this training exercise is over and done with, the Nigerian Army says it will help in combating insurgency in many parts of Nigeria. In Plateau State, for News Central, Chizoba Anioi.
Now away from that, the federal government, through the National Emergency Management Agency, has handed over relief materials to the Adamawa government for onward distribution to victims of recent flood that claims 25 lives in the state. News Central's Umaru Kirawa reports that the Northeast Zonal Director of NEMA, Yakubu Suleiman, while presenting 500 bags of rice, maize and cartons of pasta, among others, said the intervention is part of government's efforts to cushion the effects of the disaster on displaced persons across affected communities.
I've just collected a letter from NEMA that is brought from the federal government. So on behalf of the governor of Adamawa State, Right Honorable Dr. Ahmad Umaru Fintiri, as his deputy, I received this letter with great gratitude in our hearts from the federal government, from especially our president, our father in the nation. We want to say thank you to the president of Nigeria, We also want to say thank you to NEMA as a body for bringing these materials. As you saw with us, we just went in.
What tomorrow is food and not food items in a very large quantity. The President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Senator Bala Ahmed Tinubu, DCFR, graciously approved these food items. Everybody that was affected, his life is being touched in one way or the other. And that is the directive of Mr. President.
Our stakeholders have urged civil society organizations in Nigeria. They have been tasked to move beyond surface-level activism and engage more deeply with facts and institutional realities. Now, this was during the maiden edition of the Civil Society Summit on Civil Democracy and National Development, which held in the nation's capital, Abuja. Speakers at the event urged civic actors to remain steadfast in defending democratic values and driving national development.
Let history record that in the year 2025, at a moment when Nigeria trembled in the balance, men and women of conscience gathered in Abuja and chose to stand, not alone, but together.
The responsibility of the civil society under a democratic era is more complex than our own. Because during our time, those in the position of authority are occupying the seat illegally, so they have no recognition anywhere.
The civil society, under democratic governance, as bridge builders. And the question arises, and I will be provocative. Are we building the bridges, or are we attacking those bridges and destroying them?
Burkina Faso has suspended the broadcasting license of popular radio Omega for 3 months over a Facebook post referring to the country's military government as a junta. The Higher Council for Communication condemned the term as pejorative and disrespectful to the Burkina Faso authority. The post, published on July 30, linked the military regime to accusations against Ivory Coast for harboring opponents. Radio Omega later removed the controversial language and blamed the service provider for the lapse. However, the media regulator cited repeated lapses and ordered the station to publicly apologize. This suspension follows previous sanctions against Radio Omega, including 1 month ban last August over coverage supportive of Niger's ousted president. Media freedom in Burkina Faso remains under tight control since the 2022 coup. Now to Central Africa. The Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda have reached a preliminary economic cooperation framework during their first high-level talks since signing the U.S.-backed peace agreement in June. According to the U.S. State Department, the accord aims to boost transparency in the supply chains of critical materials like coltan and lithium, with the framework expected to be effective by the end of September. Both countries agreed to cooperate on energy, infrastructure, mining, health, and tourism amidst ongoing efforts to end decades of conflict in eastern DRC, where M23 rebels supported by Rwanda troops have seized key cities this year. While international observers welcome the idea, all progress analysts remain cautious, noting that militias still control much of the region and the peace remains fragile. And that's all this hour. Do stay tuned because it's still Breakfast Extra, where we have plenty conversation to come.
And welcome back. We start off this hour with our second big story. Now, for decades, Ghana and Nigeria have shared more than just jollof rivalry. We've shared migration, music, trade, and of course, there's also tension as well. But a recent SBM intelligence report is reigniting debate over just how welcome Nigerians truly are in Ghana and how that perception is being shaped not just by government policy, but by social media, history, and economic stress. Add in some highly charged rhetoric, a few viral posts, and you have the perfect cocktail of misinformation, xenophobia and fear on both sides of the border.
So this morning on our Extra Special, we go beyond the headlines to unpack what's really fueling the strain between Ghana and Nigeria. With us, we have two very interesting voices joining us from Ghana itself. We are being joined by Dr. Mohammed Sulaiman, founding director of the Center for Alternative Politics and Security in West Africa. And also joining us, we will be expecting Mr. Obed Owosu, who will be joining us. But Mr. Isaac Agay, an analyst with SBM Intelligence, is also joining us to analyze or talk about a recent report from SBM Intelligence. Gentlemen, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now,
good morning.
Isaac, let me start with you. The SBM report has made waves across the region. Can you please walk us through what was reported on that, especially regarding the economics between Nigeria and Ghana?
You put it right there. Ghana and Nigeria, we have a lot in common. And if you look at bilateral trade between the two countries, if you add both formal and informal, we're talking about more than $800 million. And if you look at Ghana's trade report, there is no country in West Africa that beats Nigeria when it comes to bilateral trade. And so, I mean, we've had relationships and it's been long. And just like you said, it's been a cocktail of factors. Although we are talking about huge bilateral numbers, there are also tensions around migration issues and what have you. And so, simply put, I mean, it's a cocktail of factors, but in the economic terms, Nigeria is one country that Ghana cannot go without, especially if you look at the energy sector, where the West African gas pipeline, for instance, has been, I mean, a massive and a major transporting line for fuel in Ghana, both for reverse flow and then also if you look at the importation of crude and oil from Nigeria. And so we depend on Nigeria for so many things, so does Nigeria also depend on Ghana. And just like I said, bilateral trade, we started somewhere around $400 million when you talk about both formal and informal. Now we are talking about close to about $1 billion US.
So, Dr. Mohammed, to you next. What exactly is fueling this dispute between Nigeria and Ghana now? It's not jollof rice anymore. It's much more serious. It would seem that it has to do something with heritage or influence at this point. But what's your take, Dr. Mohammed?
Well, thank you very much. I think the discussion ignores a number of factors. And I mean, for us to have a very comprehensive discussion on this subject matter, I think we need to bring, a lot of nuances to the fore. First, I think that the whole Ghana must go, Nigeria must go, protest to a significant extent is exaggerated to some extent. I'm not saying that we shouldn't take it as significant. We should definitely, but I believe that the actual situation on the ground against the responses that we are receiving, it's disproportionate. There is a lot of fake news going out. And SMB's report makes that very clear. And so our challenge now is to de-escalate, and it will be difficult to do so with the presence of social media. It is also important for us to, as Mr. Ajay mentioned, that the relationship between Ghana and Nigeria is like that of nagging couples who love themselves so much that they sometimes hate each other. That relationship is not going to go. It's not going to go away. It's going to be there. Ghana and Nigeria will always be friends, even if we fight every now and then and fight in quotation marks. So that it should also be made clear. Now, the other thing is exactly as Ajay said again, that Nigeria cannot be taken out of Ghana. They are contributing so much to Ghana's economy. And I think it will be very difficult for any government at all, and of course the Ghanaian government, to say Nigerians leave. That means Zenith Bank has to leave, that means UBA has to leave, that means Access Bank has to leave, and that is not going to happen. But it is important to note that the Ghana Must Go protest is about a particular segment of the Nigerian diaspora in Ghana. For many people, if you ask about 10 Ghanaians who believe in this unfortunate Ghana Must Go project, about 8 of them will say, will take Nigeria to be synonymous with Igbos. They target the particular segment of Nigerians in Ghana. And I think we need to take these nuances into consideration if we want to have a more sustainable and comprehensive solutions to what is happening.
As we talk about, sustainable solution, earlier when myself and Ms. was having a conversation about this, we're talking about, and I brought to fore about ECOWAS and AU, there's these bodies who can help, engage with these kind of intra-African hostilities with the countries. What do you think they should do, given how, given the political and security implications that tensions like this will arise, especially during the election cycle? Let me start with you, Mohammed, and then you can take it from there, Isaac.
Great. I think ECOWAS has a lot to do in these instances. I mean, West Africa is one of the most open sub-regions in the African continent, and other regions in the continent actually wish to emulate what is happening in ECOWAS. There's free movement of people and goods and services across the sub-region. And Ghana and Nigeria are the two top economies, like biggest economies, largest economies in the sub-region. So for there to be something between these two countries will have ramifications, obviously. And given what is already happening in the sub-region, I think ECOWAS has to act. And the ECOWAS protocols, the treaty, Lagos Treaty of 1975, provides a lot of, which was strengthened in 1993. They provide a lot of, indicators, the pillars to use to address issues like this. But as far as I'm concerned, I think ECOWAS is to a significant extent limited, because we know that the regionalism is part of the solution, but sovereignty usually lies with the state. So what I would expect is for the interior ministries of these two countries to actually work with their foreign ministries to address the issue. What I am seeing now is they're dealing with the issue at the diplomatic level, which is fine because it involves two countries. But the issue has to do with the interior politics of these very countries. And that is where I believe the conversations will start. So ECOWAS can just go there and advise and talk to Ghana's foreign ministry or the Ghanaian government. But if, corresponding actions are not taken at the lower sections of society, lower segments of society, ECOWAS will come and leave and the problem will come up again.
Isaac?
Of ECOWAS is to create a borderless, sub-region. But if you look at what is happening, especially on the security side of things, Ghana is actually sandwiched between three countries that are having serious democratic issues and conflicts. So on top of Ghana is Burkina Faso, that is being ruled by a military government. Okay. And you have tensions of that across the northern borders, like a town like Boko, which has since 1975 not being stable in terms of security. On the western side, you have Ivory Coast, and we all know what is going on in Ivory Coast, where main opposition leaders have actually been barred from contesting in the election, and an 80-year-old president saying he will run again. Come to Togo, similar situations. And so you can't have an ECOWAS where you have insecurity across board, and you have countries that are supposed to be championing some of these, regional blocs, all being sandwiched by insecurity. So, for instance, I get a bit worried when you talk about the relations between Ghana and Nigeria. And just like that was said, if you look at the current situation, it makes ECOWAS it puts ECOWAS in a tight corner where you have tribal issues moving from their original regions into other parts of ECOWAS, where in the case of Nigeria, for instance, the spread of fake news is simply because of maybe a tribal tension going on in Nigeria. If you listen to the leader or the traditional leader of the Igbos here in Nigeria, he said that video that was shared where there was that intention to establish an Igbo state in Ghana was somewhere way back in 2013. The question is, why is it resurfacing now? It's because of what is going on in Nigeria between possibly the Igbos and other people. So you have other conflicts in original regions having been, migrating to other parts of ECOWAS, creating some proxy conflict. And that becomes a bit of a problem for ECOWAS, putting the economic community in a tight corner. Already we know that 3 big economies, which are supposed to be part of ECOWAS, are no longer there. Talk about Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. So you can see the power of ECOWAS dwindling almost every day, and some of these insecurities and reports actually makes it very difficult for it to step in when they are needed the most.
Ajay, I want to ask you about something Dr. Mohammed here stated regarding the influence that Nigeria has on Ghana, whether it's economic or just by perception itself. Now, he also noted that this is from this preference from Ghanaians is toward a specific ethnic group, as the Igbos, like you have said. But how much exactly do the Igbo population in Ghana actually contribute to the economy there? Let's talk about entertainment, nightlife. Let's talk about the food industry and others.
We can quantify this, and in terms of the informal side of trade, bilateral trade between Ghana and Nigeria, it's almost close to about $700 million. And the Igbos contribute a significant component, especially if you look at the main economic hubs like Circle and other parts of the country where, economic activities are actually buzzing. You see Igbo traders in the phone business, in entertainment, in so many, aspects of the economy. And I was looking at the Ghana Statistical Service mapping of foreigners in Ghana, and you could see that Nigerians aren't just concentrated in the capital. Now they've actually spread across board, and the Igbos are a significant component of that. So you go to Kumasi, you go to the northern part of Ghana, you go to the central part, western part, almost everywhere you find Nigerians doing massive work to support the Ghanaian economy. And so if you quantify this, I think the simple figure has to be that close to about $700 million in terms of bilateral trade. And in looking at it in the informal side, you have the Igbos playing a significant component of that. Already in Nigeria, the Igbos are known for trade. And so definitely when they come to Ghana, what they contribute significantly towards is the informal side. But the big question has to do with the retail laws of Ghana and how that is posing a big threat, and then tension between the Ghanaian trader and then also the Nigerian trader. And so I think that's what is the main situation. But in terms of contribution, I think that the Igbo community actually contributes a lot to the Ghanaian economy.
Thank you very much, Ajay. Now, Dr. Mohammed, you noted something. You said that this is being blown out of proportion, but we all know that this has happened from before. At first, it was Nigeria must go, but people don't know that in the 60s, Nigerians were actually expelled from Ghana. Then in 1983, Nigeria expelled Ghanaians. Now, you say these are only just murmurs and might be taken out of proportion, but don't you think that these are just simply the start of what might eventually become something big? As has been noted by Mr. Ajay here, you can see the influence Nigerians have on the Ghanaian population, the commerce and all of that. Now, do you think that the worries are that Ghanaians are scared that Nigerians might be putting a footprint into their culture, their tradition, what in the future might become Nigerians saying that they have a right of stay where they might have established an Igbo kingdom? Do you think these are the concerns of Ghanaians?
Yes, when I say they are being blown out of proportion, it is not in any way to suggest that these are not significant concerns that should warrant our attention. It's definitely a very important issue, and we should take note of it. But I said that within the context of Ghana-Nigeria relations, I don't see a foreseeable future where Nigerians are asked to leave Ghana. I may be wrong, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. And I think 1969 Aliens Compliance Order and 1983, the Ghana must go in Nigeria. I think the continent, the sub-region has moved on away from that. Ghana and Nigeria have actually developed very robust relations that sufficiently places the countries above these issues of history. That history still remains in the background, but I don't think that they are likely to come back to bite in the way that we are perhaps assuming as we speak. Now, in terms of the grievances of Ghanaians, we should usually broaden the conversation to include governance itself. Ajay mentioned the case of tribal politics in Nigeria. That tells you that the source of these grievances are not only within the host country; they also come from the the original countries as well. Similarly, what is making Ghanaians frustrated about the existence of Nigerians? It is important to mention that the Ghana Investment Promotion Act, for example, prevents Nigerians or foreigners from doing certain things, including petty trading. And this is the area where you find a lot of Nigerians, plying their trade. So there is an illegality there, but that is not an issue. Ghanaians feel that the opportunities are available to them are being taken over by Nigeria. So I think for me, it is a question of economics to begin with, and with the Igbo Kingdom debate, questionable, but it then brings in the question of sovereignty. It then brings in a little bit of politics into the situation, and that is, for me, the trigger. As for the grievances, they will always be there. But as to what you do to make sure that you flip open the lid, that is on those grievances. This is what this Igbo Kingdom argument actually did. So I think the issue should be resolved, taking into consideration a broad array of other factors, traveling from politics, economics, and even cultural relations. But it goes to suggest that if you have all these connections between Ghana and Nigeria, then it also shows that the relationship between both countries are quite strong, because it is only when you have close relations that you begin to see friction. Right. All right. So for me, I think that Ghanaians have a grievance. We should not trivialize it. But there are so many things that the Igbo community in Ghana or the Nigerian community in Ghana can also do to become law-abiding Nigerians in Ghana. And I think that is where the issue is. And if this is resolved, Ghanaians wouldn't have any reason to really be concerned.
Right. Let me, first of all, let's just bring in our third guest, and that's Obed Uwosu Adai. He's the convener of the Ghana Civil Society Cocoa Platform, and he joins us live. Mr. Uwosu Adai, it's good to have you join us. Now, before I bring you into this conversation, I want to pick up on something Mohammed has said, which is that, and also that Isaac has said, right, which is on the economic side of things, and that, as much as Nigeria and Ghana, have strong ties, there's also a note that needs to be talked about when it comes to the economic part of it, right? But you also made mention, Isaac, about how ECOWAS is weakened, given that three of its also big economies have sort of removed themselves from the body, have now joined the junta. And so at this point, it begs to ask the question about the tensions that we're seeing, right? Allegations, speculation, misconceptions. My theory is this. We've also seen the same happen in South Africa and Nigeria in terms of tensions. Is there something bigger at play here, or is this just social cultural issues? Isaac.
Isaac, that was directed at you.
Isaac, can you hear me?
He might be frozen. Maybe we should move on.
Mohammed, you can go ahead and take it. Mohammed, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Did you get the question?
Yeah, as to whether there is something bigger than this?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. We should again look at the issue in totality. We cannot look at what is happening in Ghana without talking about the recent surge in what may be called negative nationalism. I think it is happening across the world, and I think there is a certain upsurge in a desire to establish sovereignty among nationals, and for me, that is what I see. That's what I see. But the bigger thing that we should look at is the issue of governance.
Governance, huh?
Because the only reason why Ghanaians will move out of their country, or Nigerians will move out of their country, is in search of better opportunities. So if those opportunities are present at home, we're not saying that people will not travel to other countries. They will, but a large chunk of them will stay at home. I have heard some prominent Nigerians suggesting that the Igbo should just come home. They should just leave Ghana and come back home and then develop their economies. It's not as simple as that. But I think there is that broader picture of the surge in nationalism across the world. And this is the same factor that is driving what is happening in the Sahel. There is this sense, this country is for us, okay? So leave it for us. That sense is very, very popular now, and they get inflamed, by the underlying grievances of crime, insecurity, economic grievances, and they allow these bigger concerns to just grab hold of the whole situation and then blow it out of proportion. So yes, there's a bigger picture, and that is why the solution shouldn't have to focus only on the national level or the regional level. We should do so taking cognizance of the fact that we are in an era where there is this negative nationalism going on, and the moment nationals feel like their opportunities are being lost to quote-unquote foreigners, then there's a reason for them in their thinking to actually rebel against the system that is welcoming foreigners at their expense.
Okay. Well, Mr. Obed, welcome once again. I want to direct this one to you. You came in late, but I'm sure that you have caught up with the conversation. Let's talk about perception and how civil organizations play in here. What kind of perception do Ghanaians actually have of Nigerians? Is it one that they actually have experience? For instance, have they seen Nigerians go against the law, or are they gathering these perceptions from off of the media, social media, for instance, and maybe our own Nollywood? We do agree that our Nollywood does not portray us well. We sometimes glorify, for the sake of, entertainment, other aspects of Nigerian culture that maybe are just happening here in the bits, but we make it seem like, that's what we are about. So do you think that these perceptions, these wrong perceptions, are responsible for the way Ghanaians have taken the matter currently and are asking for the new hashtag, Nigerians must go? Mr. Obed.
Well, thank you very much, and my apologies for being late. Maybe before I tackle the issue, let me give a caveat. My distant cousin is married to a Nigerian, so I genuinely have a very soft spot for Nigerians. So
you're welcome.
I need to put that down first. Having said that, I think you are spot on. Unfortunately, most Ghanaians, and especially the youth, consume a lot of information from social media, and social media is becoming an avenue that influences movements. Not too long ago, most of the protests that happened in Ghana were all instigated through social media. And so yes, social media is a very, very powerful tool that is contributing to this current surge in these protests and negative sentiments. But I must also say that in recent years, there have been a lot of high-profile cases that has happened in Ghana that involved Nigerians. Notably in Takoradi, there were some missing ladies which were later found to have been murdered by some Nigerians. Not too long ago, there were robbery cases that were also attributed to Nigerians in Ghana. So yes, all these happenings and all these media reportage has a way of instigating or influencing the thinking of even well-meaning Ghanaians like even myself to come to a position that that has that negative kind of behavior towards Nigerians. But generally, I would say that in as much as the social media, Nollywood, and other media platforms are feeding into this new surge in anti-Nigerian protests, there are also instances where just as Dr. Suleiman said, there are genuine issues that are happening that unfortunately the proper communication channels do not clarify. So we are left with speculation that emanate from social media. So yes, unfortunately, social media, unfortunately, Nollywood, culture, pop culture, and other things are influencing some of the thinkings, especially among the youth of Ghana. And that could be one of the avenues that has brought about this. But once again, let me put this on record that unfortunately, some of these issues have been, there have been a lot of reports and a lot of evidence that points to the fact that some of them might be speculative, but there are indeed some evidence to show that some happenings also involve our friends, our Nigerian friends in Ghana. And but let's not mix the point. The point really is, if you ask me, I'm a Kumasi boy. I stayed in the Ashanti region. I stayed close to the hub of mechanical things in Ghana, Swami. And you realize that in most of those areas, the spaces are occupied by Nigerians that are trading in those mechanical issues and things. And that, for me, is where most of these issues are emanating from. Yes, social media is playing a role, but there are also some very, very tangible evidence to point to the fact that some of the are also indeed true.
Obed, hopefully you bear with me, right? Because if I were to also look at Hollywood as well and see what is portrayed on there, I would refer to Americans as, you know, I don't know, I don't have the better adjective to describe them. But if I were to look at the crime that they portray, the guns that they sling, I would also say America is a gun-slinging, you know, country. You know, if I was to look at the Wild Wild West movie or those that were portrayed during the slave era, I would say they are, you know, they are animalistic and barbaric, right? So if we are taking information from entertainment and using that to inform our realities, it begs to ask the question about what the role of civil societies are going to play in trying to separate fiction from facts, you know, for the fact that, and also crime is crime. Let's just put it there. Should a nationality make the crime more severe? Because you just reeled out, you know, cases where women were killed. You know, a crime is a crime. It doesn't mean that the person who committed it made it more severe. So what is civil societies are doing? What do you think civil societies ought to do, you know, to sort of help to separate that leaning of getting your ideologies from fiction and entertainment as opposed to fact and humanity?
Well, I mean, you've rightly contextualized it, and I think that is where the problem is. That is where civil society, like myself and our groups, have a role to play to reorient and to re-educate and re-inform. And I like the heading of this conversation, misinformation. There are a lot of misinformation out there. We need to begin to communicate the right information to our audiences through social media, through conventional media platforms like yours and others that are in this space, because unfortunately, the anti-Nigeria and negative social media reportage is overshadowing the proper or the right thing that are happening. And negative things sell. Negative things, it catches up like fire. And so, yes, you are right. There is a role for us, civil society, to play in this conversation. We need to go to the radio stations. We need to begin to inform our audiences and our constituents of some of this negative reportage and contextualize them. But once again, let's not mix the issues. The truth still remains that even though there are a lot of negative reportage which are not true, some of the things that are demonstrated or exhibited in Nollywood and in the movies, for example, the Yahoo Boys and all that, has caught up in reality. You come to Ghana, you go to Kasua, a very popular area in the central region, and it has become a hub of the Yahoo Boys. And I mean, I'm a youthful Ghanaian, I've been around for a couple of years, and I didn't used to hear them, but from the Nollywood, it became part of the pop culture, and it has become part and parcel of the life of some of the youth. So yes, I do agree with you that you cannot always associate what is happening in Nollywood to reality, but some of them find their ways into the pop culture of the people, and unfortunately, most of it have been negative, and that is what is bringing about this negative sentiment. But you are right, civil society needs to play a role and to reorient, re-inform, and re-educate the population about the good things that our Nigerian brothers are doing here, and to try and minimize those negative social media things. Now, unfortunately, the social media negative things, it's so difficult to combat them, and we need a holistic government approach, inter-country government approach to deal with this. Leaving it alone with the social, with the civil society, we might be able to play a role, but comprehensively we might not be able to address the whole issue.
All right. Thank you very much, Obed. Again, let me come back to you now. Dr. Mohammed, I'm saving my very important question for last, and it will be for you. But Ajay, Now, Dr. Mohammed noted something initially. He said something about regulation when it comes to trade in Ghana and the fact that even as a Nigerian, you're not supposed to engage in petty trade. Now, these regulations are not being, well, kept up with. Do you think that this might also be an issue? Because it would seem that the Nigerian population is taking over. They're encroaching on people's businesses because that's what Nigerians do. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, on behalf of 200 million of us,
what are you doing,
we do this. But what can be done in terms of policy and regulation to bring things back to normal? Ajay.
Lines, right? And those fault lines are what is actually fueling this. So you come to Ghana, for instance, there are structural issues, and the structural issues makes it difficult for you to enforce certain laws. So the person who is supposed to enforce the law is on the other hand ready to take bribe. And so it makes it difficult for even foreigners, not just Nigerians. If you look at what is going on in mining, illegal mining in parts of the country where, unfortunately, Chinese nationals have actually flooded these areas, it's because they are chiefs and they are citizens who are ready to take bribes and hand over lands. So it's the same thing in the trade space where the structural issues that exist that makes it difficult for laws to be enforced, makes it easy for some foreigners, and in this case, we're talking about Nigerians, to actually go into the space and do what is illegal. And so you have instances where people have been arrested for flouting some of the trade rules, and you have policemen who will possibly be bribed in a certain way to actually let them go. And so remember that, Nigerians come here, they belong to different communities. And so as and when they find some of these opportunities to actually bribe law enforcers and all of that, it makes it difficult to enforce some of these laws. And these things trigger the fault lines that exist. Already, there are fault lines of Ghana must go. And so if Ghanaians see that, well, our brothers who were sacked from Nigeria some years ago for flouting certain trade rules are also doing the same thing now, those fault lines makes it easy for some of these things to thrive at the moment, although on the face term, they may not be that significant. But I think that the fault lines and structural issues that makes it for law enforcers to take bribes and all of that makes it very easy for certain nationals to take advantage of the system.
Wow. Take advantage indeed. Let me come to you, Dr. Mohammed Suleiman. You are the founding director of the Center for Alternative Politics and Security in West Africa. Security is what we're looking at this time. For the two nations, how would you advise in terms of early intervention so we don't see a reprisal of Nigeria must go, Ghana must go happening again in 2025?
Thank you very much. There is a very important point that I needed to clarify.
Please go ahead.
Regarding the population of Nigeria. I think this is important. That is why I am talking about it even before going to your question. You know, Nigeria's population is over 50% that of West Africa. And it is about 15% that of the African continent. So I've always said that the only time I would wonder, I would be concerned about issues of crime and other things in Ghana and say that we should blame them on Nigerians or Igbos, will be when you catch 10 criminals, you find 7 of them being Nigerian. Because when you take West Africans, it is very likely that 5 of them will be Nigerian. I think in this instance, Nigerians are becoming victims of their own destiny.
Of their own numbers.
We need to take that into consideration when we are doing this analysis. It's the same for Nigerians in South Africa. It's the same for Nigerians everywhere. Because this is one of the most populous countries in the world. So naturally, you find more Nigerians in other countries than other African countries. So that is a very good point to make. So let me leave it there.
Insightful one.
We take this into consideration and it will make us understand the issues better. Now, in terms of alternative solutions and the way forward to prevent reprisal attacks, I think I'll go back to the point about engaging the interior ministers of these countries. I don't know, Ajay might correct me, if when Ambassador Bianca Ojukwu went to Ghana, if she met Muntaka, for example, who is the Minister of Interior for Ghana.
Yes, they both met as well as as John Mahama.
Great.
Yes.
Perfect. So these sort of conversations are extremely important, because then you will be able to see exactly what is happening on the ground. So I expect things like this to happen, and the Nigerian counterparts should also be dealt with. For example, imagine bringing the leader of the Ghanaian community in Nigeria to Ghana, for example, and taking the leader of the Nigerian community in Ghana to Nigeria to talk to Ghanaians in Nigeria, and for the Ghanaian in Nigeria to come to Ghana and talk to Ghanaians in Ghana about the way they treat Nigerians. I think these bilateral people-to-people relations are extremely important.
Yes.
Because it is the fear of the unknown.
Yes,
I believe
indeed.
it is the fear of the unknown.
Dr.
People
Mohammed.
don't understand, and it allows ignorance to take over.
Dr. Mohammed, Mr. Obed Owosu, and of course Ajay, we want to say thank you very much for giving us such a robust conversation on this matter. As you can see, both of us here, Nigerians, all of you there, Ghanaians, but there's one very important question that we have to ask. Dr. Mohammed, you've noted perception, you've noted statistics, you've noted commerce, economy, and how much we exchange between ourselves, even if we're two nations apart. It seems like a salad of sorts that's causing all of these issues, or maybe let's call it a jollof of sort. So my final and very important question, Dr. Mohammed, please, is which is better, Nigerian or Ghanaian jollof? Dr. Mohammed?
This is interesting.
I know.
I was talking to one of your colleagues a few days ago, and I was chatting with her, and I was telling her that if you ask me this question in secret, my answer will be different. But if you ask me in public, I'll give you a different answer.
Let's hear both.
Let's hear the secret
one. So now if you
one.
ask me in public, I would say Ghana Jollof is #1. Thank you very much.
We understand, then we're good. Thank you very much. We'll take it. Mr. Obed and Ajay, I'm sure that you guys agree. We're not going to ask you. Let's just leave it so. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's been an exciting conversation. We've got more to talk about here inside of Breakfast Extra, so let's let you go. To our viewers, do stay tuned. We've got plenty, at least an hour more, and we'll be back. Hi, yes, it's my second best segment here for Breakfast Extra. And of course, I don't do it alone. Judith always joins me to discuss the strips. And today we have very interesting strips that we want to discuss. I was looking at this one before you guys came in. Judith, do join me on this. And I want us to talk about this strip here from Business Day. There's so many today, but I'm going to flash through most of them because there's one very important one I want us to get to. This is your reward for voting for me. I promise that you will start using it if you reflect me. Have you ever heard born without a silver spoon? Now they're giving you a silver spoon and they're saying that you can use it like as if the spoon is what I really want.
Is that silver?
Oh, it's even good. Sorry, it's golden. It's golden. But do you see the Nigerian masses in this picture and the predicament that we find ourselves? That we are about to eat from a dumpster with golden spoons. Why don't you fix that dumpster before you even give us normal utensils? We don't need anything golden. We just want to be able to live. Great depiction. I love it. Who is that? Oh, my uncle made it in again. Judith, what do you think? Nah. Mustache.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the very delicate nuanced features that go into these cartoons are brilliant. And I think we always never regard them.
I just thought it was just a regular politician.
Hey, no regular schmegular guy. That is my uncle. That's my uncle. But let's move to the next one. We've got very interesting ones here. Investors wanted, investors wanted. We are here. What are we about to fix? Electricity, oh, don't worry, we've got renewable energy for you, all of them rechargeable. These are the kind of investors that are coming into Nigeria because of the poor state of our infrastructure. I don't know if we can't fix these ourselves so that we don't need these kinds of investors is the problem. This is from Business Day once again. Asuko doing his thing.
Oh, they're on a roll.
Love it.
They're on a roll.
Absolutely love it. It's grand. And there is more. Like I said, I'm rushing through some.
No, sure,
I want to get somewhere real quick.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's find another one here and give this to you. Grand. I promise to fix the hospitals before you give birth. I'll even bring the doctors from the US. Local hospital in Tartus, US to ban Nigerians traveling for birth tourism, which is the biggest thing the past couple of years until it became more difficult. So we have very many Nigerians who are actually Americans due to this. They're still young now, but it's a very interesting scheme that people capitalize on to make money, or at least to try and escape the situation we find here in Nigeria. But the question is, can't we fix the health sector? We had a past president who died outside of Nigeria because he was not ready to risk his life or die for anything that was national pride. Our health sector is not national pride, whether you like it or not. Who could blame him anyway? But who do we blame anyway? You get it?
The tag is saying that U.S. to ban Nigerians, not just Nigerians, it's basically U.S. Not just banning Nigerians traveling traveling for birth tourism, but they are banning. U.S. itself is doing that. They're making the move where if you're coming to give birth, they would not. You don't automatically become a
citizen.
A citizen. That's one. And then two, they've also put out a warning that if you are going to go and give birth, you're not entering. You know. So I think that we need to be clear on that. They need to be clear on that lettering. But this thing of birth in the abroad, I don't want to put U.S. The birth in the abroad situation has always been about the Nigerian passport. And I think we need to discuss that. Not because not everyone has access to go. If you have access to go and give birth abroad, you are in the upper echelon of the middle class. You know what I mean? And you want to give your child options. Because the Nigerian passport, you travel. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I'll tell you something where we, as the citizens, are at fault. Every Nigerian does not know the power that they carry. The fact is this, like I said in the monologue, remember when Dubai banned Nigerians? Their malls went quiet because Nigerians were actually the larger quarter of people who were coming there to spend money. Our Nigerian passport, at the end of the day, actually packs a lot of power that we do not recognize. And if Dubai could go 180 a year after and say, it's okay, now can't they play with you? Yeah, you people should start coming. We started going.
What about the UAE? What about Qatar? What about Doha?
My point is this, that the Nigerian passport, whether you like it or not, even if we get turned around, it packs power when we stand behind it as a mass. And we don't do that. Instead, we want our children to be other citizens. That's my point. So if you back it, which side are you on, Judith? Come on.
Okay.
But sorry, say what you want to say. Go ahead.
I think that it's not about power. I think it's about access, right? And when I say access, I mean that access to more ease, right? To go through those doors.
I get you.
You know what I mean? Like,
I agree with
ease
you.
is what it is, right?
But that access will only come.
Options.
It will only come if you have numbers behind it, belief behind that passport, which we don't have. People are burning their
numbers. Anyway.
We got another one. So I want to get there. Now, from hope to fear, Nigerian women face, this is a force to work to make drones in Russia. This wasn't on the brochure. You didn't know this, Judith, but across Nigeria, across Africa, there are emails, letters, Facebook posts, and all of that being sent to young Nigerian and African women. Now, these are people as young as 16 years old. Guess where these letters, these offers are coming from? Russia. Guess what they're going to do when they get these jobs? To build drones. They're not allowed to know exactly what it is. They just think that they have an opportunity in Russia. By the time they get there, they're shipped over to an industrial part of Russia. Can't remember the name. Alabuga is the Alabuga drone assembly, and they are forced labor to make drones. While trying to escape Nigeria, we find ourselves, in fact, Africa is fighting a war. And that war is against Ukraine. But we never know about these things. And it's African women, not African men. How many drones did Russia send into Kiev lately? Have you asked yourself how on earth they're produced? Who produces them? African women. Crazy.
Wow.
Boom.
Wow.
And it took a strip for us to actually pay attention, is my point. Mind blown?
The Nigerian dream is to japa, but it's unfortunate that your fate ends into a factory. And my own is, how did this, go unnoticed?
How did it slip
and
through?
And a strip has to be
I'm telling
to
you,
be
it wasn't an
explicitly
article. It's a strip. And I think that we need to start looking at these things. Where are these letters coming from? How is it so easy to get a Russian passport even now in Nigeria to go and then start fighting a war that you have no business doing as an African woman?
That is just, I have no words. I have no words.
Listen, let's leave it there. This was where I was trying to get to. It's very interesting. Yes, we're fighting for the North. 2027 is coming. You know what they've done? So the authorities, what they did was make a forum available to assess the conformity of the current administration and the promises that they've made for the North. Just to say, hey, what do you guys need us to do? We can fix it now before 2027. So it's like trying to curry the votes for the next election from the North. Why? Because the North has 2/3 the landmass of Nigeria. The North also has more than half the voting power for anyone who wants to be president. So it's about time for the present administration to start scurrying about and pleasing the North, whether they like it or not. Take statistics. Last election, 8.8 votes for the APC. Guess where? 5.2 million. All right, 8.8 million votes for the APC from Nigeria. Guess where 5.2 million of those votes came from? The North. The North isn't very happy with what's happening currently. So the federal appointment list that came out only just a few weeks ago, guess what it did? It had 19 individuals from the North appointed. Why? Favor is what is being argued. I didn't say that. That's what people are arguing is happening. I'm just translating.
Just a week ago, Kwankwaso, who has one of the largest fan base in Kano State, giving that NNPP is in Kano State 1, and then 2, that he was a former governor of the state. He came out to say that President Tinubu was, his infrastructural development and everything else was targeted only to the southwest and not to the north, right? And I would see why afterwards there's now this, one of favoritism favors, as you're saying, back to the north. But I think that with this picture,
a very simple picture, by the way.
Very simple picture brings a number of things. And the very most important is electoral reforms. In the almighty USA, Trump will be proud of me for saying that.
You get a visa next week.
You see? Hallelujah. You know what I mean? Like, the Electoral College is by far the most innovative thing that they have done with, elections, where, numbers and points are given to certain places. For example, Texas has less number than New York.
Yeah.
You know why? Because of the number and the
numbers.
mass.
It's all a numbers game.
If an entire Texas vote, it might even sway the other part of the world, or the other part of the country as well. And so they allocate these numbers that when you get a certain vote, you get that number, and that automatically goes to this person. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Who got those numbers? If we do that, places like we're from the minority, you're from Delta State.
Yeah.
I am from Cross River State. The entirety of the South, when you look at our voting block and numbers, it is minuscule compared to the North. So I think that as we talk about electoral reform and constitutional review, that needs to come to the fore, and there needs to be electoral college and points to be given to regions as opposed to numbers.
Yes,
because
indeed.
That strip was.
It was. Listen, I tell people, pay more attention to these strips. They are a very interesting way of getting the information to you in a very digest way, so you don't see that doom and gloom, but you get to the critical issue in just one picture. A picture, they say, is worth more than 1,000 words.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the strips for this weekend. Thank you very much for joining us.
Well done. I love them. I love everything.
Thank you. Actually, let's give Collins a round because
Collington Christopher.
Collins Christopher, 2 last names. He often gets us the very, very juicy strips.
Shout out to you, Collins. Well
All right,
done.
We've got 1 more hour to go, yes, inside of Breakfast Extra. Do stay with us. More conversation to come.
Hey, welcome back. There's fresh political tension at the grassroots level in Delta State as the legislative arm of the Ughelli North local government area has suspended 3 serving councillors. The decision which came out of a plenary session led by legislative leader Prosper Ajero, is already sparking fierce debate. According to the House Councillor
Festus Inana, Isoje and Collins Ogenebore Ahariopore were suspended for gross misconduct and breach of oath of secrecy. Now, all 3 have been barred from participating in legislative duties, while an ad hoc disciplinary committee conduct is investigating. Now, at the heart of this issue is accountability, loyalty, and murky code of conduct that many outside the chambers, they don't fully understand. So, to help us unpack the layers of the developing story, we're joined by News Central correspondent in Delta State, Austin Azu, who has been following the matter from the ground and here brings us more detail. Austin, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us, Austin. Grand. Austin, if you can hear me, I'm going to go ahead and ask my question. Yes, Grant. So, Austin, what more can you tell us about what's happening there in Delta State?
Like what you rightly stated earlier on, there has been some political imbalances in Ughelli North local government area regarding the suspension of 3 councillors in the council. However, this suspension has hit a lot of reactions from stakeholders, particularly regarding the political stakeholders in Ughelli North. Of course, we tried as much as possible to get across to the suspended lawmakers, but obviously most of them declined comments, claiming that their leaders are on top of the situation. From what we gathered so far, the 3 lawmakers were suspended based on gross misconduct, alleged gross misconduct, and vis-a-vis that they have been asked not to be found within the legislative chambers within the stipulated time. From the first information we gathered, there was no time stipulated for the suspension, but from what we are hearing at the moment, some information that we gathered said that the lawmakers were given 6 legislative weeks for them to be out of the chambers. So it has really been quite difficult for these lawmakers for them to get proper direction to what has led to their suspension. Okay, we saw some of them speaking on different platforms and so on and so forth. So we tried as much as possible to get across to them for them to be our guests of this show. So about a few hours ago, that the person declined that his leaders said that they shouldn't speak on national TV, that they are willing on the issue. But from other people who spoke to, they said that equally they confirmed that their leaders are willing into it, but they actually fingered the council chairman, that's Jaro Ego, behind their suspension, and they are claiming that no legislative arm will suspend any lawmaker without interference or interferences of the executive arm of government. So obviously we don't really know how they are taking it at this point in time, but however, some of them said that they want to go to court to go and challenge their suspension in court. Others are arguing that this is family matter, that they will resolve it amicably. But others are saying that they are giving the local government chairman and the other lawmakers who suspended them, that they are giving them a few weeks for them to receive their decision, or they will meet heavy protest that will rock Ughelli North local government area. However, what happened that was on Thursday, from what they said, that they were actually told that there will be no plenary, considering what has happened in the past few weeks of celebrating 1-year anniversary. And don't forget to where that the local government chairman and their councillors marked their 1 year in office in Delta State about last week. But some of them said that because of what the local government chairman told them, that there will be a plenary, there will be a press briefing to showcase what he has done for the local government areas. And of course, it's going to be a joint house between the local government chairman and the serving councillors to engage the stakeholders to speak to the media about what they have done. And they slated time to be 7 a.m. in the morning. But after a while, about 2 hours interval, that the chairman cancelled it and said, okay, it's going to be, it's no longer going to hold anymore, that he had an engagement in Asaba. So he cancelled it. About an hour interval again, they said that they are going to convey, the councillors are going to convey, and immediately after that, what they heard that they have been suspended for alleged gross misconduct. And obviously some of them were at home preparing for them to attend the plenary, and one of them categorically said that that suspension is null and void, that is purported that it will not hold, that it did not follow due process. Now, what are the issues at hand? Now, some of them said that the issues at hand regarding their 1-year anniversary, that the council chairman has actually came out to highlight what he has done for the people of the local government areas. But all of them, they tell councillors 7 in Ughelli North, 11 councillors 7 in Ughelli North, that they have nothing to show for their 1-year anniversary. Hence, they are asking the council chairman to finance them, for them to go back and start projects that they will use to tell the people that this is what they have done. And at the end of the impeachment, at the end of the suspension process, it was alleged that a 200,000 naira was given to each of the lawmakers that signed the suspension process for the 3 lawmakers in Ughelli North local government area of Delta State. Basically, these were what played out at the plenary on Thursday last week, where 3 councillors were suspended in the legislative arm of Ughelli North local government area.
You said that there's expected to be a protest that will shake up the community. Were you able to talk to the affected wards that their councillors have been suspended? What has been their reaction? What has been the political fallout in those wards?
Yes, the political fallout at the moment in those designated wards that those councillors were suspended, they were not happy about the process. And some of them are actually venting out their angers that they will take to the streets to go and protest if the chairman did not call the House to order, that there's no way councillors or lawmakers will be suspended without the interference or interferences of the executive arm of government. And we are unable to get across to most of them, but what we gathered so far is that the stakeholders from those affected wards and those councillors, they are pacifying their constituents for them to calm down, so that leaders of the APC in the state, who are now the ruling party, will prevail on the issue to speak extensively on what has happened in the area. But however, this is not the first time councillors are being suspended in Delta State over what they claim to be alleged gross misconduct. In some time past, nobody heard about them. Some time past, they will just suspend, and some of them will not go to the press. Some of them will not allow the press to talk to them. Some of them will not even divulge the information to the press. But this particular suspension of these 3 lawmakers is so significant, because at the end of their suspension, which they claim that it did not follow due process, they went to their wards and their areas and begin to vent on their angers. However, we saw a viral video, a viral post about how the letterhead of the legislative arm of Ughelli North was used to solicit for fund. However, in course of speaking about it, some of them claimed that because the council chairman failed to provide them with necessary funds, hence they wrote to the revenue committee in the local government area for them to get those agencies, those parastatals, those involved in paying taxes and paying revenue to the local government, for them to go out on their own to start seeking for funds. And from what they said so far, that this is what actually part of what led to their suspension. That the chairman felt so slight. The chairman was angry that why should they go to that extent to begin to, search for funds. That particular financial request was sent to one of the financial institutions in the local government area. So, and most of them were not quite happy that you starved us of funds. You didn't provide us the constituency projects that we are supposed to embark on to at least tell our people what we have done. Now you are coming again to suspend us illegally, that they will not take it lightly, that they are going to ensure that I exhaust all the necessary process for them to get justice. Now, who is going to address this issue at this point in time? Will it be the council chairman? Will it be the governor? or who else will address it? Because it seems at this point in time, nobody has issued official statement.
Right.
The party has not issued official statement, and the governor spokesperson has not said anything about what has happened in Ughelli North regarding the suspension of these 3 lawmakers.
Austin, let me ask you, right, as we wrap up, my final question for you is pretty much about, we know that most of the political structure has now switched lanes from PDP to the APC. Is this a case of internal party struggles? Is there more at play here? From your own assessment of the entire situation, what's at play here?
Yes, at this point, it's not related to party affairs. From our own findings, it's related to, power tussle. And, the chairman of the local government area claims to be powerful to an extent that he would just decide to act on few individuals to begin suspension process or whatever that may likely happen within the council area. There's a particular case that happened within one of the local government areas whereby the chairman heard about alleged impeachment, and of course he quickly mobilized to the legislative chambers and started enforcing, closed down the chambers, drove all the councillors away from the chambers. And you know what it means when the third tiers of one of the arms of government is being bullied, is being coerced, is being forced, is being intimidated. So they have to hang around the secretariat and so on and so forth. We equally heard that period there was some kinds of area boys that was brought to the legislative arms to deal with those councillors. So obviously at this point in time, it's not really political relating to political parties, because all of them actually moves down to the APC, and all of them seems to be paying allegiance to the chairman himself. So what might have actually triggered this whole process, from what we have gathered so far, is actually linked to financial requests for them to begin their constituency projects in their area, so that they will be able to at least be abreast and more related to their people at their grassroots level. So we don't really want to. We really want to find out more about what has been happening in the area, so that we're able to keep our viewers updated with what has happened so far in Ughelli North, precisely.
All right. Well, Austin Azu, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed with what's happening in Ughelli North. We'll continue to follow and hope that you bring us more detail as the story progresses. Thank you very much.
Austin Azu there.
Go ahead, Judith, please.
I was going to say Austin Azu there with the update there from Ughelli and Delta State. Let's go on a short break. When we come back, we switch our gears. We might just bring you the front pages of the dailies for Sunday, but also return to Focus Africa after the break. Stay with us.
Well, welcome. Sorry again. I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Judith.
Yeah, welcome now.
Welcome again. It is time for us to bring you the dailies. We normally would do this at the start of the show, but I and Judith got lost in a conversation that took all of 10 minutes from then, so we decided to push it back. No apologies, because we're bringing it to you right now.
Absolutely.
Let's do the dailies now, shall we? We're going to start from the front page of the Punch newspaper. Now, the Punch newspaper has this headline: Tinubu's re-election, Northern ex-lawmakers split after presidency meeting. We talked about this inside of the strips this morning. Shinshagi, others back Tinubu as Gbajabiamila refuels North's neglect. Factions, caucus reject Abuja communique, alleges betrayal of Northern interests. So the North is actually a very big deal when it comes to the elections. And this is why we see this fight for the North, because that's where the majority of the votes could come from for 2027. So you need to actually jump on this now if you want.
Very wild that just one region detects who becomes president.
Well, it's...
Even though the thing says 27 states plus the FCT.
I wouldn't
call all of the North votes for you,
but
that's plus the FCT.
Dictation would be a very strong word. I would say, just like our guest, Dr. Mohammed noted, statistics is at play whether you like it or not, when it comes to most of what happens in Nigeria, across Africa. The numbers speak for themselves. If you have 2/3 of the population in the north, it should be expected that that's where you're going to get the most votes. So it's really statistics.
As I said, the Electoral College formula has to be applied in Nigeria.
There's more headlines here. EFCC gets petition against NNPCL boss as resignation rumor spreads, and food inflation persists in southeast as prices drop in the north, because that's where you have most of the production. Dropping Shatima won't stop Tinubu's 2027 victory, APC North Central Forum chair says, and World Bank plans $250 million health loan for Nigeria next month. Yet again, another one. Nurses warn against victimization after suspending strike. Don't test us, we could resume. And how gas flaring silently steals sight of Akwa Ibom residents. Oh, that's a very interesting one I will like to read.
Yes, indeed. We'll move away from Sunday Punch, shall we, to the next one that's pulling up right there on your screen. Should be the Sunday Times. I was going to say Nations. There we go. We'll start off with the Sunday Times here. Dangote Refinery's appointment of David Bird and Nigeria's indigenization policy. You can find this story on page 1 of the Sunday Times. Over 400 fresh cadets are trained to tackle insecurity. NDA. That story there is on page 4. Nurses suspend nationwide strike action as NANNM signs MOU with federal government. That story there is on page 2. I am no longer a Nigerian, haven't renewed passport in 20 years. Bad enough. And your first name is Kemi. I got the biggest explosive.
So much to say.
Listen, very surprising coming to find out that you attended the same secondary school as myself.
No, she
yeah.
did. Here?
Yeah.
Or were you there at any time?
No, we are different, separate sets. So the sets has been dragging.
It's very interesting that you should add that to
on the alumni Facebook.
No, this is fact, yeah?
I'm not joking. I forgot about Shagamu. She went to school here before she relocated.
So what do you think is responsible for the absolute shift in her
Apparently, she's always been that way.
Because when that came out, I had a conversation with a friend, and we went into research. And this is not us. This is not me. Now, in our research, we noted that people, even here, or the Nigerian population in the UK, actually refer to her as something quite very it leaves a bad taste.
It's not palatable.
But it's not palatable at all. So they call her the black face of white privilege. And say that she is currying for favor from a race that really does not really regard her, and that's why she continues to try and strive that she wants a favor from them. She wants to look a certain type of way from them. Now, these are not my takes. These are takes that we garnered from research.
Her bunkmate in Just One described her as a person who had a victim mentality.
Oh.
That was absolutely.
It hurt so much.
It's like, I don't know, Kemi, you need to fix it, okay? Just stop. It's okay.
It's a bit anti-Nigerian at this point.
And also stop calling us. Just do what you want to do. Leave us alone.
Yeah, leave Nigeria out of it.
Just leave us.
Yeah, we'll give you the Ghana. Anyway, the Nation, are we still on?
Yeah, we're still the Sunday Times. Nigeria must hit 2.7 million barrel per day oil target by 2030 SPE. You can find that story on page 11. BVN-linked bank accounts hit 66.2 million in July. Fraud losses top 1 billion naira, and that's from NIBS. They can find the story on page 10. And right next to it, at the bottom there, high-interest startup loans threaten survival of Nigerian small businesses. That story is on page 9. Pretty much all we can take for the Sunday Times. I'm sorry, we went off on a tangent there.
Again.
Bring you over again. Sorry.
We need
it was Kemi.
But not to worry, because we have our final conversation coming up inside of Focus Africa. So, do we get to it? Do we take a break? What do we do now?
Let's jump right into it.
Let's jump right into it. Last week, trade diplomacy took a heavy hit. The United States imposed a 30% tariff increase on key South African exports, citing what it called growing concerns over governance, international alignment, and also domestic policy issues in Pretoria. Now, while the South African government scrambled to announce support measures for affected exporters, critics are pointing fingers not just at Washington, but at domestic groups they say helped fan the flames. We're going to take a short break. When we get back, Judith will be introducing our guest as we set off on exactly finding out what these issues are. Once again, let's do this. Like I said from before, last week, trade diplomacy took a heavy hit as the United States imposed a 30% tariff increase on key South African exports, citing what it called growing concerns over governance, international alignments, and domestic policy issues in Pretoria. Now, while the South African government scrambles to announce support measures for affected exporters, critics are pointing fingers, not just to Washington, but at domestic groups they say helped fan the flames.
And at the center of the storm is AfriForum. It's a prominent South African civil society organization known for the right-leaning activism. AfriForum has previously lobbied U.S. officials directly, warning about alleged government corruption, anti-minority policies, and even raising claims of a white genocide in South Africa. One of the men who stood before the U.S. Congress as part of that lobbying campaign is our guest, Ernst Van Zyl. He's the head of public relations for AfriForum. Mr. Van Zyl, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you for coming on. Let's start with the basics. What is AfriForum's official position on the recent 30% tariff hike by the U.S. government on South African exports?
Right, I just want to quickly correct something. When it comes to AfriForum's stance on the issue of farm murders in South Africa, we do not call farm murders a white genocide. That's not a terminology that AfriForum uses. So I'm not going to be talking about an issue of quote-unquote white genocide here in your conversation, seeing as that's not an AfriForum stance. What is AfriForum's stance on the tariffs? Well, for the past 90 days, just like the rest of the world, South Africa, the South African government specifically, had the option to negotiate with the United States, to come to the negotiating table and work out a deal. But 90 days later, there's no deal. The South African government seems to be scrambling to try and put something together. But the United States put very clear criteria on the table in regards to what needs to be addressed domestically in South Africa to make a deal possible. And the South African government doesn't seem to want to make any concessions on any of the points raised by the United States government. And those four issues include, and we can go into them in detail if you want, but the four main issues that the United States government mentioned was, firstly, that farm murders in South Africa need to be need to be addressed properly and given the attention that they deserve from the government. Secondly, racially discriminatory policies by the South African government need to end. Thirdly, that murderous chants like kill the boer, kill the farmer by high-profile politicians need to be condemned by the government. And then fourthly, no confiscation of property may happen, no expropriation of land without compensation will be permitted. Those are the criteria that the United States put on the table, and the South African government has not addressed a single one of them.
Okay, well, very interesting, Mr. Van Zyl, but your organization has been to Washington before, and they warned of these chants that you speak of, and also discrimination against white South Africans. So do you see these tariffs that have now been imposed as a result of your lobbying efforts, or are they related to maybe your views?
Well, they are most certainly related to the South African government not addressing the issues that the American government has mentioned. I can't really say how much role AfriForum played. We're just the civil rights organization in South Africa. We have been lobbying to bring attention to these issues, but these are real issues. I mean, talking about these issues should not be controversial, but caring about farm murders, caring about private property rights, caring about standing against racial discrimination, these things should not be seen as controversial. Some politicians frame them as controversial, but no, I don't think these tariffs are mainly the result of, or even largely the result of AfriForum specifically. They are largely and primarily the result of the South African government's failure to come to the negotiating table. As we know, I mean, now it's already been reported, but the South African president appointed a special envoy to the United States whose mission was to negotiate and talk to the American government. That was all the way back in May this year. But the last 90 days, that special envoy to the United States, Mr. Jonas, has just been missing in action. It's being reported that his visa was rejected and that his credentials rejected by the Americans. And this is something that they warned the South African government about, and the South African government just pushed on anyway. So South Africa has effectively been without diplomatic representation in Washington for the past critical 90 days. So, I mean, it's just one of the examples of how this is squarely the result of government failure in South Africa, and they're trying to create a scapegoat by blaming civil society organizations for their own failures.
Many in South Africa, I mean, like you rightfully said, they, including members of the ANC and business leaders as well, have said that this is economic sabotage. So how do you respond to this? How do you respond to these accusations that AfriForum's actions abroad are hurting the very economy that supports millions of South Africans, regardless of race? Mrs. Zeal, are you there?
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Well, we seem to be having some issues here with the connection. We're hoping that Mr. Ernest Van Zyl can hear us, but we could hear everything that you said from before. So once again, we're going to try and see if you could hear our question. Go ahead,
Can you hear me now? Mr. Ernest Van Zyl, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Zyl?
Okay. Tell you what, this is a very interesting conversation, Mr. Zyl, if you can hear us, and to our viewers. Let's try and get that connection right so we can fire off a few other questions which we've been trying to get from Mr. Zyl. We'll be back.
Welcome back. Earlier, we're discussing about the 30% tariff hike that has now been slammed on the U.S. on South Africa by the U.S. government. Now, we're speaking to one of the men who stood before the U.S. Congress as part of lobbying campaign of AfriForum, and that is our guest, Ernest Van Zyl, is the head of public relations for AfriForum. Now, before the break, you were talking about, the shortcomings of the government of South Africa in helping to, reduce the tariff hike that that U.S. was most likely going to slam on South Africa. But many in South Africa, including members of the ANC and business leaders, see this as economic sabotage. Then how do you respond to those allegations or those accusations by the government, who have said that the actions of the AfriForum have sabotaged the economy regardless of race?
Well, I mean, firstly, I've not seen any business leaders or any real organizations with integrity making that claim. It's just politicians that are making that claim, and specifically those politicians whose failings are the responsible for these tariffs making those claims. So they're desperately trying to get a scapegoat, but they've got no proof. I mean, if you're going to make those types of wild accusations as a politician in South Africa, you better have evidence, and they've not been able to bring a shred of evidence to the table, only sound and fury signifying nothing.
Well, very interesting. We've got so many questions for you. We're not stopping there. Now, critics say AfriForum's international lobbying misrepresents the reality in South Africa. I don't know how you feel about that. They say framing complex inequality issues as targeted persecution. So you said not to speak about it as genocide. Let's use the word targeted persecution now. So what's your response to that?
Right. Well, there's very, very concrete evidence of targeted racial discrimination by the South African government. This is not something that you have to go dig very deep to find. It's very easy to find. The South African government has over 140 race-based laws, many of which discriminate very directly against the white minority in South Africa. This is a fact. This is not speculation. This is not a conspiracy theory. People can go look up this legislation for themselves. They exist. So the government just screaming about denying that these laws exist is not going to work. They exist. I mean, the South African government discriminates against white South Africans in sport, in business, in employment, in promotion, in every facet of society. There are laws that mandate government discrimination against white South Africans, and those laws are there for everyone to see. I mean, they give these laws beautiful names like Black Economic Empowerment, but it has nothing to do with Black Economic Empowerment. It is simply laws that mandate businesses to discriminate based on race when it comes to hiring people, when it comes to promoting people. And there's many examples. One of the examples that is very prominent is Dis-Chem. So one of the largest pharmacy companies in South Africa, recently there was a memo that leaked from internally by the CEO of that company. And that CEO wrote in that internal memo that the company Dis-Chem, the pharmacy company, is going to put a total freeze on any hiring or promotion of white people because the government is threatening them with major fines if they don't. That is active discrimination. That is persecution and targeting of a minority group by the government. And it's very clear for all to see.
Hang on a second, Mr. Van Zyl.
There was a sports team earlier this year in cricket that was disqualified because they didn't have, because they had too many white players on their team.
I don't want you to go too far.
So these are many examples of this.
Now, I don't want you to go too far regarding that issue that you just raised. It was a thing of quota, that they were asked that they employ a certain quota that represents, well, the vastness of the South African population, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, that's racial discrimination. If you're telling a business that they should be, if a white person applies for a job, they should tell them you won't get the job because you're white. That's racial discrimination. That's wrong.
Would you say to, or what would you say to ordinary South Africans, especially the black farmers and small business owners, whose exports would be affected by these tariffs? How do you justify AfriForum's international strategy to them?
Well, AfriForum never advocated for tariffs. We never asked the United States to put tariffs on South Africa.
But the tariffs have now been initiated.
Due to the policies of the South African.
But critics have said that these tariffs have now been initiated due to the lobbying of AfriForum.
And that's the South African government, who has been completely just non-existent at the negotiating table until now, from all that we can see. And the United States told the South African government, you need to address these 4 issues if we are to negotiate for a trade deal. And the South African government has not addressed a single one of those points that the US government put on the table. So for everyone who's not an ANC-aligned person, it's very clear to see who's to blame.
What are the numbers of, if we're going by race, what's the poverty line for the white South Africans and the black South Africans?
Where does it lie?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
I'm asking about the poverty line. I'm asking about the poverty line. Where does it lie between the white South Africans and the black South Africans?
Unfortunately, the sound is breaking up again as I can't hear the question.
How many white persons are poor and how many black persons are poor? What's the poverty ratio? You still can't hear me?
Unfortunately, we seem to have that issue.
Mr. Van Zyl, unfortunately, can't hear anything.
Can you hear me now? Am I audible?
I don't know. There seems to be some problem on your studio side. I can't hear anything.
Right. We'll try and fix that. Just do stay put. We'll try and fix that. Judith, very interesting question that you should ask there. For me, it is whatever has been caused now is what I find very interesting, that everybody has to now suffer this 30% tariffs that the U.S. has imposed on South Africa. And I'm wondering, well, hey, we got unpressed, like in Nigerian parlance, you've pressed spoil.
Yeah.
And it's going to affect you at this point. But we're still inquiring from Mr. Van Zyl here exactly what the intentions were for AfriForum at the start of the year and how this could, I really want to know whether the relationship between South Africa and America is going to deteriorate from now. So when he comes back on board, I'm hoping that he could actually answer that. If South Africa now is talking about support measures for exporters, likely exploring diplomatic counter steps, is this going to mean that we're just going to do our bit here to try and save the situation, but we're no longer friends? That's the question I'm going to be asking him. If we can get him back, if we can fix the audio, we're hoping that is, unfortunately, we're being told that we have lost Mr. Van Zyl due to poor network, which is very unfortunate because that conversation. Okay, Mr. Van Zyl, I'm hoping that you're back with us. Mr. Ernst Van Zyl, you are back. Yes, I can hear you.
Right, so I was asking earlier about the poverty line between the black and white South Africans?
Kindest to repeat it, please. I'll gladly answer.
Poverty line between black and white South Africans. Can you tell us what's the ratio?
Well, I don't have those statistics, particularly what percentage of white South Africans are below the poverty line and which percentage of black South Africans. I don't have those percentages, but I mean the majority of impoverished South Africans are black South Africans, and that's thanks to 30 years of failed policies of the South African government. I mean, there's a strange trend going on that the more race-based laws that the South African government implements, the higher the poverty rate and the higher the unemployment rate rises. These policies are not addressing poverty in South Africa. They're just creating a new elite, a new race-based elite in South Africa out of those with the right political connections. So on the one side, they're not race-based laws in South Africa and racial discrimination in South Africa are not addressing the poverty issue. And on the other side, it's not really even, it's not morally correct.
What are these policies that you speak of that is, impoverishing the black South Africans? What are the policies? Can you name a couple of them, please?
Yeah, I can name some. So firstly, there's the Black Economic Empowerment Act, as I said, which has a beautiful name but has nothing to do with black economic empowerment. It is a piece of legislation that mandates racial discrimination against white South Africans. There's the Employment Equity Act that does the same. There's the Competition Act, which also mandates racial discrimination in competitive matters when it comes to corporates. There is the Public Procurement Act, which also mandates racial discrimination in public procurement matters as it pertains to the state. The list goes on, and many of these examples are broad and far-reaching. For example, the Employment Equity Act and the Black Economic Empowerment Act are applicable to every facet of business in South Africa. It mandates racial discrimination, strict racial discrimination against minorities in South Africa across the board, in small businesses and large businesses. And racial discrimination by the government is wrong. It was wrong in the past and it's wrong in the present. And it's not even alleviating poverty. It's just creating a new small elite.
So you don't think equity can alleviate poverty? You don't think equity can alleviate poverty? You don't think that more policies to sort of close that gap that you speak of, when you say that, the poverty ratio, more blacks are more impoverished than white, and you don't think that employing more of them, tipping that gap in between is not the solution? That's what you're saying. It's not the solution. Instead, it's racially motivated. Yes or no?
Alleviated poverty, then we would have had poverty alleviation in the past 30 years, and the unemployment rate would have decreased because the government has over 140 race-based laws in the past, still on the books in the past 30 years, adding new ones every year, and the unemployment rate keeps rising. So I don't see the connection. I don't see the connection between uplifting people and the government discriminating based on race. It's only creating a new elite class of those with the right political connections, and it's not uplifting or empowering anyone. Like I said, these laws have these beautiful names like employment equity and black economic empowerment, but it does the opposite. It doesn't make people more equal, and it doesn't empower anyone. It only empowers the wallets of politicians with the right, who know the right people.
Okay, this will be my last question, but it's two-pronged. First off, I don't know, is it a thing of representation for white South Africa in governance, perhaps? That's one. On the other hand, South Africa now has started talking about employing support measures for exporters. They're exploring diplomatic counter steps. Do you think that this is going to affect the relationship between South Africa and the U.S. going on forward? Do you think it will deteriorate? Do you think that white South Africa has anything to gain from this at the end of the day?
Right, so the first prong of your question in regards to political representation for the white minority in South Africa, well, the South African government and the ANC in particular is quite anti-white in its rhetoric and in its policies, and very hostile towards the white minority. So I don't see them giving whites any real political representation, maybe some window dressing, maybe some token whites here and there, but not real representation in the sense of that the white minority in South Africa can actually have an influence and push back against laws that discriminate against them and their children. And that's why organizations like AfriForum exist, civil rights organizations outside of party politics, to bring about a real change in South Africa, because party politics has failed in all South Africans, but minorities in particular, in regards to party politics, not really putting an end to racial discrimination and not doing anything about the farm murder epidemic in South Africa. In regards to some of the measures that the South African government are now putting into place to counteract the effects of these tariffs, well, it's a bandage or a little plaster on an axe wound. What they should have done is they should have negotiated for the past 90 days and gotten a trade deal. They should have listened to what the American government had to say when the American government said, we want you to address problem A, B, C, and D. The South African government should have looked at those problems. They shouldn't, what they did instead was to put their head in the sand like an ostrich and deny that these problems exist. And then they attacked those organizations that care about these problems, like AfriForum. There's now a high treason investigation against AfriForum in South Africa because the South African government attacks the critics and the messengers rather than attacks the problems, and the problems are very clear for all to see. And that's unfortunately the state of affairs when it comes to the latest in this diplomatic crisis. And it really is a crisis. It's one of the largest and most serious diplomatic crises in South Africa's history since 1994. It's going to have a major effect on South Africa, and the government is missing in action. Like I said, our special envoy to the United States, our special diplomat who was appointed for this situation, is sitting in Johannesburg. He's not sitting in Washington. Why is that? That's a question the government needs to answer.
I have a question as well. It's a rhetorical question, sure. And that is, for a country that is predominantly black, it's very interesting that the poverty ratio is also black as well. But anyway, I want to say thank you, Ernest. Thank you so much, Ernest. This is all we can take. We have to wrap up the hour. Ernest Van Zyl, I want to say thank you for coming on. He is the head of public relations for AfriForum. Once again, thank you. We appreciate you. That's all we can take for the hour here on Focus Africa, and also for Breakfast Extra as well. It's been quite the show from Saturday and now to Sunday. But of course, as always, we have to close the curtains and say goodbye. Good morning.
It's been a great one. It's goodbye from me here as well. Catch you guys next week, Saturday. Join us bright and early, 8 p.m. But come tomorrow.
Yeah, so we're back. It never ends.
No, tomorrow's not us now, is it? It's going to be the three.
Oh, I'm sorry. Breakfast Central, all right? Olive, Joe, and of course, Benga, the trio that got you from 7 a.m. all the way down to 10 a.m. Monday to Friday. Have fun. I thought we were going to say Monday to tomorrow. I was like, let me do it again.
It's okay. Goodbye, everybody.
Brain fart, forgive me. I'll see you when I see you. Bye now.